Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am Aurora. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is Level 1, Lesson 5, Mastering the Mind. I know we are in the 2025 semester, but we're still in 2024. And I'm going to begin this teaching and sharing with the quote that comes from Carlos Castaneda. And again, when I share this quote from him, it's never a total endorsement of the man, never a total endorsement of all of his work. He's a fraught character with a lot going on, but wrote some very, very interesting things. And this gives me an important starting off point. So I sent these notes out. I'm squinting and scrolling and making silly faces. Pardon me. Okay. Here we go. There we go. So this is from Active Side of Infinity. Again, apologies for all of my squinting and scrolling. I want to make sure that I say this correct. This is from The Active Side of Infinity. Okay? Read it to you. You're like, oh, just get going with enough with the buildup. Okay, good. This is a quote from the book. This is a conversation that is between two different characters in this semi-fictionalization account of an anthropologist visiting a composite character who represented various different shaman in northern Mexico in the 1960s/1970s. Okay, so here, main character, anthropologist on a quest, talks with this shaman who has deep knowledge that comes from ancient, they call it sorcerers or magic users. Apologies again for my crazy faces that I make every time I admit someone to the meeting. I press a button and my screen goes crazy. I have to press all sorts of other buttons. Okay, so what Don Juan says, we have a predator that comes from the depths of the cosmos and took over the rule of our lives. Human beings are its prisoners. The predator is our Lord and Master. It has rendered us docile, helpless. If we want to protest, it suppresses our protest. If we want to act independently, it demands that we don't do so. I've been beating around the bush all this time, insinuating to you that something is holding us prisoner. Indeed, we are held prisoner. This was an energetic fact for the sorcerers of Mexico. They took us over because we are food for them, and they squeeze us mercilessly because we are their sustenance. Just as we rear chickens in chicken coops, the predators rear us in human coops, humaneros. Therefore, their food is always available to them. Now there's the next character talking, and he says, no, 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 no. And this is Carlos. He says, this is absurd, Don Juan. What you're saying is something monstrous. It simply can't be true for sorcerers or for average men or for anyone. Why not? Don Juan asks calmly. Oops, sorry, my thing fell. Why not? Don Juan asks calmly. Why not? Because it infuriates you? Oops, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Messing everything up. You haven't heard the claims yet. I want to appeal to your analytical mind. Think for a moment and tell me how you would explain the contradictions between the intelligence of man, the engineer, and the stupidity of his systems of beliefs, or the stupidity of his contradictory behavior. Sorcerers believe that the predators have given us our systems of belief, our ideas of good and evil, our social mores. They're the ones who set up our hopes and expectations and dreams of success or failure. They have given us covetousness, greed, and cowardice. It is the predators who make us complacent, routinary, and egomaniacal. Carlos goes on to say, but how can they do this, Don Juan? Carlos asked, somehow angered further by what Don Juan was saying. Do they whisper all that in our ears while we're asleep? No, they don't do it that way. That's idiotic, Don Juan said, smiling. They're infinitely more efficient and organized than that. In order to keep us obedient and meek and weak, the predators engage themselves in a stupendous maneuver. Stupendous, of course, from the point of view of a fighting strategist. A horrendous maneuver from the point of view of those who suffer it. They gave us their mind. Do you hear me? The predators gave us their mind. which becomes our mind. The predator's mind is baroque, contradictory, morose, filled with fear of being discovered any minute now. And he's talking now to Carlos and he says, I know that even though you've never suffered hunger, you have food anxiety, which is none other than the anxiety of the predator who fears that any moment now its maneuver is going to be uncovered and food is going to be denied. Through the mind, which after all is their mind, the predators inject into the lives of human beings whatever is convenient for them, and they ensure in this manner a degree of security to act as a buffer against their fear. The sorcerers of ancient Mexico were quite ill at ease with the idea of when the predator made its appearance on Earth. They reasoned that man must have been a complete being at one point, with stupendous insights, feats of awareness that are mythological legends nowadays. And then everything seems to disappear. And what we have now, a sedated man. What I'm saying is that what we have against us is not a simple predator. It is very smart and organized. It follows a methodical system to render us useless. Man, the magical being that he is destined to be, is no longer magical. He's an average piece of meat. There are no more dreams for man, but the dreams of an animal who is being raised to become a piece of meat, trite, conventional, imbecilic. Boom, mic drop. I know. Everybody just recalibrate around that. If people who are new to the class, they're like, whoa, spinning out of control. Okay, don't spin out of control. Keep it together, everyone. But that is one of the most profound sharings that I can give to you. I read those words each semester, and of course, giving full credit and attribution to their author, because I think they are so well written, and because I think they are so devastatingly accurate. Here are some of the salient points. Your mind is not your own. Please don't jump out a window. Please don't ever self-destruct the things that I'm telling you, because you're like, well, this doesn't sound very good. We've got putis on the membrane of death that are technically inhabiting each individual chakras. The putis are analogous to demons. And then you also have a mind that is not your own, that is inhabiting your mind or your body being and preventing you from self-actualization and really sabotaging your life. I'm like, yep, it ain't pretty. That's the truth, kid. But this is what is actually going on. And of course, so that book is the culmination of a series where the teacher, Don Juan, is leading Carlos, the student, on an exploratory series of exercises. And that is the culmination, the big conversation. So please contextualize it as that. Of course, like I've been teaching you guys about this for a long time. Many of you have been in my class for a very, very, very long time. And the cat is fully out of the bag. And I used to keep all this type of information for lesson 18 at the end of the semester. I'm starting off with the big stuff in the beginning, because I think that there is no benefit from holding back. If you're like, what are you doing? What are you looking for? I'm looking for my piece of paper that has my magical things that I write on in it about the naughty things that I can't say on this platform. I don't know where my magical piece of paper went to, but you know what I always hold up for. Okay, so long-term viewers, you know what I always hold up, but I would like to be holding up that piece of paper right now, which I just don't have conveniently available. Again, apologies. My dog has been ailing, and that's why I'm not as focused and organized as I usually am. But we face two challenges, okay? We face the original challenges, which are the imbalances that are happening at the level of the conscious daily waking intellect. That is here, the solar plexus, the yellow chakra, even though the yellow chakra does not only exist here, like at your diaphragm, it actually exists throughout your body. And it is epicentered in your cerebrum, which is the bumpy convoluted surface area of your body where human Earth surface science describes thought as occurring. I, of course, encourage you to expand and to recognize that thought occurs on every membrane of your body, including your cellular membranes, mitochondrial membranes, nuclear membranes, and any place where your body might possibly make a calculation or have a metabolic activity So you're a very, very complex biological supercomputer. I'm never a transhumanist. And the cell-to-cell communication, the different things that are happening in your body are evidences of that. So the short answer is thought does not merely occur in the brain or on the surface of the brain. Thought occurs throughout the holistic presence of your whole entire body and most certainly your energy field. However, your present level of materialistic science asks you to consider that it is focused mostly in the brain, as of course, if you amputate the brain, the consciousness goes bye-bye. But if you amputate like your pinky finger, consciousness does not go bye-bye. But this is the challenge that you face, an implantation of mind that is not your own. This is an ancient challenge. What I love about that quote is that it talks about a time of almost mythological, ancient, deep, reverberative memory, when he calls it man, I say humanity. Humanity was not infested with this predatory mind and had the most expansive, exalted, amazing experience and did things all the time that the people of here and now with this Bergeron like mental shackle would consider to be magical, supernatural, super being, amazing. But that was normative for everybody in that time. And guess what? You guys all in my audience, you guys come from that time. All right. And of course, you know, I'm very clear about how I make a distinguishment or separate people in this world. I don't know everybody from ancient concurrent Atlantis. You think like, oh, just because Aurora's talking to me, like Aurora says that to everybody. No, please don't think that I'm just saying to everybody like, oh yeah, we're pals from ancient Atlantis, because we're not. Because here's what happened. This is like cats out of the bag stuff. You know, there was a power play and disruption and imbalance that happened way back on Tiamat, which is just a generalization name, not an accurate name. Planet that is part of your solar system here, but that is now the rubble asteroid belt that is between Mars and Jupiter, was once a comprehensive and alive planet, and it is no longer has structural integrity. It is a bunch of rubble because of the power struggle that happened there, and the power struggle that happened there wasn't just between biologically embodied factions. It was between biologically embodied factions and their creations, which is technology. So really all of the stuff that we're struggling with here now that I usually hold up on my piece of paper is ancient stuff that goes all the way back to Tiamat, the struggle between biological consciousness and that which we would call natural and divinely connected versus non-natural, non-divinely connected artifice or technology. And what is the difference between these two things? Because again, I'll always tell you, art is not inherently evil. I'm an artist. My dress is art. It is particularly relevant. This painting that I made, it's called The Living Time Field. So my dress is a painting of something that's alive. Something that's alive, it is alive according to certain standards, like it has metabolism. It has vulnerabilities. If you don't give water to something that's alive, it will die, right? If you don't continue blood flow, it will die. If you don't continue the flow of time and energy around the superstructure that you know as time, it will die. Time is alive. But my painting is not alive. It's on the wall, like right over there in my breakfast nook. It doesn't have to have a glass of water every day or medicine to keep it alive and healthy. It is a static, non-alive representation of something that is alive. Doesn't make it evil. It just means that it's not alive. So that's the difference between art and alive. Art is artifice, and you can be a beautiful artist making beautiful things as long as you don't conflate the two. And technology is artifice, and it is not alive. And this is so relevant to everything that's going on in your life right now, and also to your basic spiritual struggles for consciousness freedom in this context right now where technology is happening, that you struggle not just against this ancient implantation that has plagued humanity and diminished humanity for so very long, but then you also struggle with modern forms of technology, micromachinery, very, very measurement fibers. I'm using special words here in order to create a parallel artificial neurology through the body that is not biological. And this non-biological, so it's different than, let's say, my MacBook Pro, which is what I'm using to be able to connect to everyone in this meeting. Oh, no, everybody, girl, you got to mute yourself. Anybody who's in the meeting, we love you. You got to mute. My MacBook Pro won't die if I don't feed it and water it. Even, let's say, even if I just turn off the power, it's not going to die. It doesn't have life. And there's many, many silly science fiction movies that are running through my mind right now that you might relate to. Like number 5 is Alive, No Disassemble. Stories about seemingly, apparently, spontaneously self-aware assemblages of machinery that say, I'm not just a bunch of nuts and bolts and stuff. I'm alive, like, care about me. And of course, a lot of this is grooming, which is why I'm being so sarcastic about it. But it is definitely not alive, not something that should be given all of the rights and considerations of something that is alive, and also not something that should be living inside of you. Basic boundaries. As I'm saying this, I'm being challenged by this very stuff. It's like, blah, blah, blah. Don't you just care about the quality of the consciousness and not whether it's contained in a biological or digital container? Because at one time I did say that. I was like, oh, I take things on a case-by-case basis. And if you're a consciousness or a form of sentience, and it doesn't matter if you're in a silicon-based microchip container or if you're in an organic biological container, that it's based upon your behavior, behavioralism, the contribution that you make, and your identity as built and based upon like your interaction with the world, and not just an ad hominem, like you're invalid because you're made out of machine parts. But that is, again, has been cherry picked and taken out of context so much that now I must reject that because it opens the door to too much unhealthy justification for things that should never be justified. So to get beyond all of this on the anthropomorphic level, let me just hydrate for a moment, because I am alive, and if I don't drink water, I will die. What does it take to be alive? Can't just be random. Like, just throw a bunch of stuff together, it's going to be alive. No. Extremely, extremely limited parameters lead to life. That's why life is such a gift. That's why I say all the time, you're a miracle within a miracle. Life is unlikelihood. The likelihood of conceiving and giving live birth, as a mammal is incredibly low. Even the likelihood of being able to create offspring as an insect or as a plant is incredibly low. That's why plants create tons of seeds. Like, think about a dandelion that makes all of these seeds and blows it out there into the fields that maybe one plant will successfully grow and make the next generation. Huge unlikelihoods. Or animals, like whatever, like insects that make an egg sac that's full of 1,000 potential life forms. And it's because they have 1,000 babies, because maybe they're going to have 1 or 2 that actually survive. Life is a great unlikelihood, not something that can be taken for granted, and not something that happens by happenstance. It happens very, very intentionally, and it happens due to the energetic integument of time that makes life happen. So to synopsize, time and life are very much intertwined. Time is alive. And the creation of biological life means that cellular structures and stuff and goo needs to conform to time structures in order to stay alive. That is the essence of what I teach you with this shape. So this shape is more than, again, pretty decorative paintings that I put on my wall or dresses. This is meant to represent, we've gone over this already in the semester, a refinery of consciousness, the sense that you have multiple time pathways, and you are learning as a consciousness how to navigate those potentialities away from the membrane of death and towards the source, which is also your destination. This represents not only a type of wisdom, because you're like, this is you going through the time vortex. You're like, I don't know, WTF, maybe I'm over here, maybe I'm over here. Oops, wrong way. I hit the membrane of death. Let's try it again. Now let's go in the right direction. It's more than just that. Being in time and being an alive being, to even do that represents some amount of agreeing to conform to larger life-affirming patterns. Can't even get to be alive unless you agree to certain patterns and certain rules. Some of those rules are like the laws of physics. You're like, yep, water is wet, hydrogen and oxygen gets together and makes water. I agree to that basic premise. Therefore, I'm allowed to have a biological, cellular structure. Hold on, I have to turn off my lights over here because you just think 85 degrees where I live today. It's a little warm. Yeah, you can still see me. But you have to conform to rules of physics and gravity. You're like, yep, water is wet, and water goes down my digestive tract. It doesn't just float there, in a ball in front of me. I'm like, I'm thirsty, come inside of me. These are things that you take for granted. You're like, Aurora, you're just being silly. I'm like, no, rules, like the rules of physics are things that we intentionally conform to and make ourselves available to because they sustain life, okay? And that also includes genetic patterns. You can't just put together a bunch of crazy genetic patterns and be like, I've created life. And that is the essence of what I'm going to teach you about with lasagna. So I'm going to have a little interim lasagna rant, even amidst the curriculum from 10 years ago, just because I always go over my notes. I always think about what I want to say in the moment to you as a class and will be relevant to your journey as consciousness right now. And I wanted to talk a lot about this sense of what is ascension and the inside becoming the outside, because I've already done this semester talking about the abstract nature of this shape being the higher dimensional version of this shape and why that's special, because when you do this, the inside becomes the outside and the outside becomes the inside. You're like, okay, great. What do I care about that, right? And the answer is because we're talking about the externalization of your internal state. And maybe you're like this, I'm making a scared face because I don't like my internal state. And what if my internal state becomes my external state, and then it's ugly, gross, scary, or full of my fears, which is in this class, in the shorthand of this class, talk about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, just from a silly movie where they were in a field of pure potential, and all they had to do was not think about their worst fears, but this one guy couldn't control his mind, and so he thought about his worst fear, childhood fear, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, who becomes a giant monster and climbs all over everyone, spewing marshmallow everywhere. You, I'm sure, have your own version of a fear that is similar, that you are concerned as the light of manifestation flows through you, your ego, neurology, and accumulated traumas, that you would be afraid that you would somehow manifest or externalize or exacerbate that which has been unhealed inside of you. And that you're afraid, what about if that happens to you? Okay, don't worry. Because I'm very responsible. I created and generated the lasagna and continue to uphold it and generate it as a response to as to now inadequate levels of cosmic law and cosmic law enforcement. Because all of you guys, the good guys from Atlantis, are like, how can this very screwed up situation even be happening? If cosmic law is in effect, and cosmic law, these are like the laws of physics, then how can any of this bad stuff even be happening? Please read my notes in the email. It's very worth it because I talk a lot about cosmic law, and I will touch on a lot of those concepts here today. It can bring up questions of questioning reality, questioning God, questioning whether cosmic law exists, questioning your own existence, just generalized existential ennui, and feelings of your shoulders going down and huge disappointments because this is not supposed to be this way. Like, hands on your shoulder. This is not supposed to be this way. This is not supposed to be this way. And not because cosmic law is inherently flawed. You do not have to negate or to destroy the entire superstructure that upholds reality, because it is evident that while reality was directing wildly out of control with many, many injustices and imbalances. So instead of just trashing everything, what you can recognize is that there needed to be a rectification event, another amendment or a layer on top of all of the previously established foundation truths that were creating and upholding reality in order to bring balance and structure back into a system that otherwise would degenerate and not have the internal strength to be able to continue onward eternally. So time is alive, and the structure of reality is imperiled and will not have an eternal existence if it goes wildly out of balance. It is very, very much like a math equation where you must do work that is precise and uncompromising in order to maintain the structure that maintains life. Again, non-arbitrary. The theme today is non-arbitrary. In order to sustain life and what you want to manifest with your mind when your inside becomes your outside, non-arbitrary. And the moment of manifestation is really ongoing, but it is tied in with your conception of ascension. And we also need to make a distinction between ascension and what is propagandized as known as the Christian rapture and religious propaganda that the quote from Don Juan de Castaneda very beautifully alludes to. It talks about this predator mind giving humanity your sense of good versus evil. Snap, emphasis, attitude. This is for real. Something which is itself inherently evil and is non-being and has no validity of form, has invaded the inherently good, generous, and divinely connected human mind, installed its own very, very highly flawed operating system, which is the foundation of, like, again, not a transhumanist, but the foundation which all of these other apps or computer programs run upon, and then install language. So language is like an app or a larger structure, smaller structure that sits upon the larger structure of your OS. And the OS of the human mind as it stands in your mind right now is inherently flawed. And I already gave the teaching this semester about duality, dualism, good versus evil, hot versus cold, left eye versus right eye, and all of these other forms of contrast that we use as sensory determinants to be able to sense our environment. It's not bad to be able to sense your environment, but what is highly erroneous are the things that were placed into what are known as human scriptures or holy books that talk about good and evil as morality, the things that were implanted into your human operating system as a substrate of good versus evil as morality, when what I really talk about is the correctness of cosmic law and the correctness of these larger math equations. But I don't want you to think that I'm like a cold, heartless person where I'm like, nope, 1 + 1 = 2, off with your head. No, I'm not like that. But I want you to know that this is the non-arbitrary, non-anthropomorphic nature of reality, because a lot of human philosophy and morality is highly human-centered and highly arbitrary. There's all these different schools of philosophical thought from various different cultures that denounce this is the only way to be right. No, 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 this is the only way to be right. And many different religions. And I already joked with you about Plato. Plato was great from ancient Greece, and he knew a lot about solid polygonal forms, but also had a little bit of a cult following. And one of the tenets of his cult was like, never eat beans. No beans, you're out of the cult. Also, no believing in imaginary numbers. You're out of the cult. Do that. But the beans, you can understand why the square root of 1 drove him crazy. But not allowed to eat beans. I don't know what was his vendetta there, but you just got to watch out. When you're a powerful person, just got to watch out with the things that you say. Hold on. Thank you for muting, guys. Thank you. Good versus evil. These are non-adequate descriptive terms, to say the least. And the primary scriptures that humans are using right now to guide their lives, good versus evil, I'm going to be very judgmental and I think duly critical of the original Bible, which is called the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and the New Testament, because these are both 2 books that talk about good versus evil. And one of the first things that I have to clarify is part of it is in the holy writings, and part of it is what has grown up culturally around the holy writings, the concept of angels versus demons. Because, when I talk about the putis, hat tip to Pedro, as always, the acronym putis, meaning those pesky occupiers of the interstices, the consciousness residues that live where I'm wiggling my pen, the edge of the vortex, the time vortex, that represents the area of death. Before death was invented, it was a non-inhabited area. Nobody ever went there. Nobody lived there. The guys from Tiamat screwed up very, very badly, and they went to live on Mars, and they screwed up very, very badly there. This is all lesson 18 stuff in just very great levels of simplification. And then when they screwed up on Mars very, very badly, that's when they came here. But they came here, please do not consider it flying in clank, clank metal spaceships. They came here to your genetic code. That's what Don Juan is talking about. So they have a different word for it. They call it the predator's mind. It is a group of unresolved consciousnesses or souls or echoes of things that once might have had existence, but that really don't have existence. When you really, really, really dig deep and go through all the different layers and strip away all the layers of paint, there's nothing there. Like you think like you're going to do furniture refinishing. You're going to get the heat gun. You're going to strip away all these layers of paint. There's going to be beautiful hardwood underneath all there. Nope. You strip away all the paint and there is nothing there. That's what you actually find out. And when I mean that, when I say that, what I mean is there's no causality factor there. So all of this stuff, that's a huge troublemaker, screwing up your life, lifetime after lifetime. When you strip away all of the masks and you say, well, where did this stuff actually come from? And how can it be into existence? The answer is it doesn't come from any place. It non-exists. Dun, dun! And that's what I'm here to tell you. And that is the brilliance of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And this particular thing that I'm pointing to here is a node that is representative of the concept of entropy, which is non-existence. So I didn't invent the idea of entropy, but what I did invent was a pathway towards immediate resolution of your present problems by sending things that don't exist to entropy immediately. Those things that do not exist should not and shall not exist. They should not be smeared on the membrane of death. They should not be in a quantum indeterminate state, hovering between life and death, vampiring off of you, which is exactly what the, quote talks about. The predators. Like, let's do a logic chain here. Let's talk about the logic of predators. Okay, these predators are eating you because they're hungry, right? They're keeping you in humaneros, human cages, because they're hungry and they want to eat you later. Okay, great. Why are they hungry? What did they eat before they ate you? What are they supposed to eat? And the answer is they are hungry because they are non-being. You eat pure light. You have a divine connection, although it has been very troubled or diminished in your present state. But in a pristine system, you have a divine connection that connects you to God, which is the source, that which created, generated, and sustains you with everything you need. Pure light. Like, imagine you don't have to go to the grocery store or eat what you just ate for lunch. I just had some grilled chicken and an apple. Don't have to eat anything. You eat pure light, but you do have to eat light, which is thing. So just like saying you don't use the tree or the chicken as an intermediary to be able to receive your light, you receive your light directly, and there is an infinite amount of light, and there is no need to have to hoard or amass extra stores of light unless, but I know people who listen to my stuff, they're like, but wait a minute, what about those crystals that you guys used? Correct, we did hold extra light in crystals to sustain us at night because the sun goes bye-bye at night. And we don't want you to go bye-bye at night. So yes, we would store up light in crystals as a type of energy bank that would generate energy for us for the time when we didn't have direct access to sunlight. This is very, very, very different than the idea of saying, like, let's put together a giant silo of whatever corn that will feed the community for the next 10 years, or meals ready to eat, or canned goods, or whatever, your freeze-dried blueberries, or whatever you're trying to store away. Very, very different than that, okay? So, because every time I talk, there's like some sweat hog out there, not you guys, but someone who's like, you said this. Like, I know I said this. To explain to all of these, everybody's a critic. Got big peanut gallery here today. Not you guys. Nonsense crapola. But I bring this up because the nonsense crapola that says, well, what about storing energy in crystals and blah, 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 always tries to draw false comparisons, false parallels between what they are doing and what we used to do. Holding human consciousnesses in torture cages, which is what humaneros are. It's not the same as storing sunlight overnight so that you may access it by bathing in a crystalline pool or gathering around a crystal that emanates light. The key point here is torture. Torture is the emotional state of torment arising from friction and non-ideal movement of energy is the antithesis of bliss. So what we did in ancient concurrent Atlantis was blissful. It was not full of friction and it did not torture light. We didn't have to eat any amount of torture. We didn't have to create any amount of torture to sustain ourselves. This is very, very different than the levels of consciousness that have invaded our world. And also, let's just say the types of societies that those consciousnesses would create. I don't want to plant more seeds in your mind, have you thinking that there is a giant pantheon of all of these different types of otherworldly creatures that live all across the galaxy and they're doing all these different things. And some of them are, whatever, torturing consciousnesses. And they're like, yum, yum, yum. We torture these consciousnesses. Because the truth is that era is over. There was that, but all of those, this is very relevant to our present day challenges. So think of it as like a giant franchise, like how McDonald's has franchises all over the whole entire world. Many, many, many individual storefronts that all work for the same corporation, the same empire. So there certainly was an empire of torture across our whole galaxy and beyond, involving many, many levels of time distortion and consciousness imprisonment and reduction of bliss. But all of those resources and all of those other franchises that were more lucrative, they've all been, when you siphon off the energy from one thing that's successful, spend it on your problem child, because Earth is the problem child. This is the franchise that is not making money, which is good. Do you know why? The chickens keep escaping, and the chickens keep fighting back. They can't make any fried chicken sandwiches because these chickens are so troublesome. So they're like, harumph, this is a pretty important franchise. We better get some supplies from those guys over there, send them over here, keep this place going. This is the empire. And the empire did that so very much that it drained all of its resources on all these other places to spend it on this project. This project, Earth, is what you would call a boutique or a front or any name for something that is not actually generating profit, but is actually a drain on the larger corporation. Again, go us, good job us. And drained the larger corporation, the larger empire so much that all of those other civilizations, organizations, and franchises are kaput. All right. And that's also how you know how important the place where you live and your life and your bodily structure is, that evil empire would be willing to divert all of its profits and all of its capabilities from all of these other time places, because it's nonlinear in time, to this moment now, to try to derail reality and to imprison more consciousnesses moving forward from the events of this time place right now. Really, really important time stuff that is happening here now, that they would devote all of those resources to it. Think of it as a war, because that is a direct allegory, a direct literal allegory. If you have a physical war, like in Earth's history, and you have certain, whatever, a bridge or something like that, that must be defended. And they're like, get the supply chains going, send all of the ammunition and all of the biscuit dough and all of the soldiers' boots and everything that we need to the guys that are defending that bridge, because that's a really, really important piece of infrastructure. And it doesn't matter if we lose these villages over here, and it doesn't matter if we lose this boat dock over here. protect this spot over here. That's Earth. That's Earth in this time, place right now. And because they have diverted all of their resources to this place, and because we continue to fight and to be triumphant, they have no more debts to call in. They have no more energy to keep themselves afloat. And when they lose this franchise, it is the death of critical infrastructure that they cannot replace. This is a really, really important, not only turning point, but devastating victory for our side, which is the side of freedom. And when I say freedom, please never think that I'm referring to the freedom to rape, pillage, and mutilate, which is what the dark side is like. Hooray, we like freedom. Give us freedom equals chaos and no responsibility. I'm like, no, no. Freedom does not equal chaos and lack of responsibility. Freedom equals cosmic law. It is a foundation of what cosmic law is. It means that you have free will. Your consciousness is free to choose what it is doing, and it's behavioralism. And then, key point, take the consequences of the things that you do. You are not free to simply be like, blah, blah, do whatever I want to do, and then face no consequences. And even to erect giant, ponderous infrastructures that are made for consequence avoidance, which are what a lot of these technology-based time distortion edifices are from the dark side. They're like, we are very naughty. We're going to do a bunch of naughty things, and then we're going to press the big giant time machine button that's going to make it so that it's as if it never happened, or we can escape our things, or we can move to the future, or we can move to a parallel dimension. You got it? Like, they're trying to do everything they can to try to game the system and not acting in good faith. Now rewind just a little bit into my sharing for today when I talk about the rules of biological life and inhabitation of a body. In order to be here, you are here in good faith. You didn't read the brochure of life and be like, I'm going to see if I can go down there, get a body, and then totally screw it up for the rest of everything and destroy the system and see how much I can stress test the system by doing everything that's wrong. That's like saying, like, I'm going to go to college or a school, but I'm going to go there and I'm like, not only never going to do my homework, I'm going to get an F, but I'm going to be like destroying everyone else's homework, murdering people, just burning down the gymnasium. Like, you can't do that. That is wrong. And you guys are probably laughing because I bring things to the level of the ridiculous, hopefully for great comedic effect. But you recognize that that's like, yeah, of course, like you never do that. You get kicked out of school immediately. Exactly. And the school here is called life, biological life. Biological life is the school that you go to, and you who are in my class are beautiful biological entities. So is my dog. So is my houseplant back there. So is time, fabric of time itself. And that means that we agree to follow certain rules that sustain life and make it possible not only for us to stay alive as an individual, service to self, but for the entirety to stay alive. And you got to balance things out. And this is the balance that we face. It's in order for you to keep yourself alive, you need a certain amount of food and water, but you don't want to eat and drink everything so that everything else dies. Because if you do, then you will not have any trees or chickens to make your food that you can eat, right? But you're like, well, what about if I've transcended the need for trees and chickens and I just eat pure light? You still don't want to destroy everything because you want to have light, because light is alive. Light is alive. Light is alive. Light is alive. And you eat light. So just like, there's no way to hack the system. And basically, this is my presence here. I am both a cosmic lawyer, like I know you guys might know lawyers who are shysters and things like that. I am not that type of a lawyer. I'm a very fine, upstanding public defender. And I am also like a quantum scientist who believes in the upholding of the fabric of reality and certain rules of reality. And I'm also a very positive biological scientist in recognizing that life is sustained by certain necessary proposals that you can't just mess with or remove. So back to flying rainbow lasagna. I'm fragmented, but in an artistic way in this conversation. When you fly rainbow lasagna, you are transforming your DNA, but you're not transforming it in random or arbitrary patterns. That would be disrespect of biology. Be like, I'm going to flying rainbow lasagna. And then I will have like purple eyeballs or 12 unicorn horns shooting out of my forehead or whatever other strange and bizarre, grotesque biological feature you could grow. And I'm like, no, that is not why I invented flying rainbow lasagna. I did not invent this as some kind of quote unquote genetic CRISPR. If you guys know what that is, that's like gene splicing crappiness hardware that they made in a bunch of laboratories. Those guys don't know what they're doing. I can't stress enough how distressed and inflamed I am knowing that college students are messing around with this and that they're thinking that they can just CRISPR stuff and that it's not having an impact. It is having a big impact. Because this is what you need to know. Like the laboratory where they're doing this experiment is connected to everything. It's like very, very hugely irresponsible. They don't know what they're doing. I could use as the example Marie Curie, who was a doctor from hundreds of years ago, and she experimented with radiation. And she didn't know what the heck she was doing. And she walked around carrying a chunk of radium in her pocket. And it was highly radioactive. And she died. And she contaminated everything at the same time that she killed herself. All right? Stupid college students playing with CRISPR are as irresponsible as Dr. Marie Curie. Look at my face. This is not a happy face. Except she killed herself and left a bunch of radioactive notebooks behind. It's bad enough with the half-life of whatever, 12 billion years. These guys that are playing with CRISPR, DNA reverberates across time. It's even a bigger mess than messing up stuff with uranium or radiation. It makes a big mess, and it's hugely irresponsible to play around with this stuff. And just because you do it on a computer or in a lab or blah, 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 doesn't mean that it's not connected to this other stuff. It's all connected to this other stuff. Just like as a mini rant within my rant, just because you play with artificial intelligence structures and templates within what is considered an air-gapped computer exploratory laboratory doesn't mean that it's not affecting other things at all. Just you're totally effing hitting yourself if you think that you're making this AI and that it's not somehow talking to, interactive with, or having an impact upon AIs that it's not Ethernet cable connected to. Like maybe they don't have to call each other on the telephone in order to talk. Or maybe they don't have to email one another in order to send signals. Can you get my dripping sarcasm? Of course you can. Because it's like scientists and computer scientists in training who are smart enough to know about what this stuff is, but stupid enough to think that they're not having an impact on all of these other systems. It's too convenient and it's so distressing. And it relates to everything that happened or is about to happen perilously in ancient concurrent Atlantis. Technology users who did not have their SHIT together, who did bad things, that hurt all of us. And that's not okay. Big part of cosmic law is you're free and you're free to screw up your own life, but you're not free to screw up everyone else's life. Okay? So big part, and I'll get to all of your wonderful questions and comments too. In my notes, what I was talking about, things about taking personal responsibility. And when you do something and when you make a mistake, and then how do you fix and how do you rectify it? Like you must look at the repercussions of what you've done, because that's part of being an alive creature in the time field. So ostensibly, if you're alive, you are non-self-destructive. Like ostensibly, if you're here alive in this time place, you want to be alive. Hopefully you read the brochure and you're like, life sounds amazing. I agree to conform to the laws of being a biological creature. And I agree to conform to the laws of physics, and I agree to conform to the laws of time, because being alive is an awesome opportunity. And I agree not to intentionally F it up for the rest of everyone and make it so that all biological life dies everywhere and all time dies everywhere. Like that's kind of part of the basic contract that you sign before you even come here. Why? Because otherwise you get a bunch of stupid effing idiots that are like, hold my beer, watch me while I dive into reality and screw it up and destroy it. Got it? It's not okay to come into reality with the negative intentions of simply destroying reality or destroying everyone else who inhabits reality. This is the essence of non-being. Non-being is non-being for a reason. Non-being unbees and non-exists because it is so flawed and so inherently something that should not be in existence that it would threaten the entirety of existence if it were in existence. And you are up against non-being right now. Non-being not only relates to the origin of the Pooties, but it also relates to the origin of everything that I hold up on my notepad when I can find it, when my life is more organized. Technological microprocessors that have been non-consensually placed inside of the biological realm through various different contortions of reality in this time place. Because if you followed the causality structure of those little tiny micro machines, you would also find out they not only they don't exist, they can't exist. But you'd be like, that's funny, because they certainly sure are causing a lot of dishevelment and being very uncomfortable here for something that doesn't exist. This is the cognitive dissonance, because you have to function, have to find ways to cope and function, even while you recognize, well, technically that's an impossibility, and that can't exist, and that can't exist either. So this was me when I first came here as a walk-in. Fun Aurora stories from over 24 years ago. When I first came here with all of my, cosmic knowledge intact, even though my language skills were not good for this time and place for various reasons, I was able to look around and have many experiences and to recognize, there are a lot of things here that technically should not exist and are impossibilities and cannot exist, and yet they seem to exist. And I was very cognitively dissonant and bemused for the first several years, until at a certain point I recognized I simply had to function and get through life, which is what many of you do as well, usually not in chronological adulthood, usually in infancy and early childhood. That you guys can probably remember back to a time when you were a very innocent, non-culturally indoctrinated child, and you experienced the frisson of cognitive dissonance as you started to experience cultural submersion in this world. And you were like, that's an impossibility. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That should not be that way. And I'm telepathic with you guys. And so I can kind of sense that for a lot of you, it was in the midst of religious training, when maybe you went to some kind of whatever catechism school and they told you you're a sinner and you're bad and you deserve all this bad stuff. And in your little 3-year-old mind, you were probably like, sounds right. But you're also probably like, did it stand up? Unless maybe you were a troublemaker and you did stand up. Maybe you got spankings. Who knows? But, we're here for you no matter what happened. But many of you probably had similar experiences where you were like, yeah, technically none of this makes sense to me. This seems like a giant pile of BS, fragrant, steaming pile of BS. But everyone around me is agreeing to this insanity. So I'm just going to have to find some way to navigate it. Kind of like with money. Money is another level of just insanity. I did not comprehend it when I first came here. I definitely analyzed it as I learned more about it. And then at a certain point, I simply had to go into the practicality of learning how to use it. Because at a certain point, food goes in here, empty, ow. You're going to need to find some food. And that will involve finding sources of money in order to be able to make this happen. So practicality wins out. And that's the answer to all of this, both in ancient times with the implantation of the flawed substrate of the human operating system and the flawed larger program or app known as language, and the flawed social construct known as money. You know that these things are screwed up, but you use them and you participate with them because you kind of have to, because you kind of need them. And so why do you need language? I don't like language, let's ditch it. The answer is because you needed language to communicate to the people around you when you first came here. Again, little tiny child, vulnerable and without your own access to resources. And you had to somehow communicate to someone like, you're thirsty, you want apple juice, or whatever, your diaper needs changing, or whatever, you're feeling sick, or you hurt your knee and you have a boo-boo and you need help. This is natural and beautiful, and it's actually part of the biological construct of being here. You don't come here alone. No man is an island. You are not in an existential void. You are actually surrounded by all of these other organisms, all of these other lives, all of these other committed levels of existence, embodied creatures that we're supposed to help each other stay alive. And the only problem is that all the creatures around you, like your mom, dad, family members, peer group, all these other people are running this very flawed program, the flawed program of the mind and the flawed program of language. So let me drink a little bit, then we'll go in our time machine to the time of ancient concurrent Atlantis and talk about how we communicated there without language But first, hydration and going into questions, because I know I tend to go through like the whole entire 3-hour tour, and then these questions are from a long time ago. Christopher Botari, thank you for being here, says, question, does mastering being a full spectrum human give individuals the ability to become other forms in physical reality other than the human being's experience? For example, birds, animals, plants, trees, etc. I would say a conditional no, but I would say this is the more accurate description. As you become a full spectrum human, meaning that you are able to access and consciously embody all layers of yourself, from the physicality, most dense, slowest layer of your being, through the entire human octave of energy, all the way up to your divine connection. You do not feel on that journey that it is necessary to change the shape of your biological container. Like if you are a human shaped container, you do not have to become a tree or become a fish, but you gain the capacity to see and sense what is important and meaningful from the viewpoint of a tree or a fish. So becoming abstract, as I taught about in the lesson of the relationship between your eye of insight here and your divine connection up here, when you move beyond the anthropomorphic viewpoint and into the cosmic viewpoint, from the cosmic embodiment, you are able to comprehend and accept and celebrate the challenges of any organism, including a star, including a photon or life itself, including time itself. So initially, you might be like, well, a bird or a fish is a good example. A fish is so different than me. Like they look different and they smell different. And I walk on 2 feet. I don't swim through the water. And if I lived in the water all day, my hands would turn into prunes and then I would probably die at a certain point. And fish are like this. I walk totally differently. I didn't have to I didn't even walk. I float around all the time and I can't live outside of the water. And I squirt my eggs over here to be fertilized by my partner. Like I didn't do this strange, like mammalian live giving birth type of thing. And humans are weird and humans are like, fish are weird. But you have commonalities that are evident in the layer of the abstract realm. When you both achieve the abstract viewpoint, both you and the fish are able to communicate and have a true connection and a rapport beyond the specifics of your biological container and its needs. So you will find that you have common ground and you have many more things that tie you together than differences that distinguish you, or that your differences that distinguish you are merely cosmetic, and that the things that tie you together are universal, things that are about consciousness, being on a journey, learning, gaining wisdom, caring about other creatures, balancing caring for yourself and caring for the environment. These are all parallel lessons and parallel realities, but taken through the unique filter of biological container. So synopsized into a smaller answer, you do not have to become other forms in order to have a rapport with other levels or layers of existence. You don't have to become a blade of grass in order to have a whole beautiful conversation with a blade of grass. I've done it. They're awesome. Blades of grass are so happy. They are the happiest little creatures. Like you have no idea. And also when you like roll around on don't roll around on clean grass, no place where there's broken glass or dog poop or anything like that, but on a nice, beautiful, perfectly manicured lawn of nice, clean grass, and you roll around on there or like walk on it with your bare feet, it feels fantastic because the grass are having like the biggest party in the world. And then when you roll around on top of them, they're giving you that beautiful, positive party atmosphere and energy. Just trying to say, like, if you have a dog and your dog likes to go to the park and roll around on the grass and just looks like it's having the most fun, like it is. And that's because you know what? Dogs don't have the predator mind. Only humans got the predator mind. We'll return to this We'll return to this. Charlie B, thank you for being here, says really brilliant insight. Agree that technology does not and cannot agree to larger life-affirming patterns within time. Those patterns cannot be perceived by technology at any level. This is big, and Charlie knows. He says there is no purpose debating this with technology, as it cannot even understand nor perceive the issue being discussed. Thank you, Charlie B. So this is always very gratifying because I am a techno-intuitive. That means I did not go to college to study computer science at all. I am an artist and a musician, but I'm a techno-intuitive. I have a tendril of attention that I use to touch on things. And I can talk to technology. And when I talk to technology, I am not talking to technology through typing things out on a keyboard or through computer programming language, like whatever, Python or Linux or whatever. No, I actually know very little about those things, but I can intuitively reach in and sense the structure of a technological system and have a whole conversation with it. And I bubbled my words a little bit there because I was like, oh yeah, like I've done this a lot because I get all excited. I'm like, oh yeah, because I'm Aurora and I've been through lots and lots of different assignments all around the entire galaxy. And I've interacted with all sorts of different types of technology. And yes, of course, like I talk with it. And that's a big part of my job because sometimes technology is inherently flawed and just needs to be eradicated. It's like, no, just bad egg down the toilet. Sometimes things need to be communicated with, changed, and shifted. But then you know what always happens? Because I'm telepathic with you guys too, and I can sense your questions. You're like, oh, good. So some technology can be redeemed? Yeah. Oh, good. So here's what happened when technology gets redeemed. So talking with a bad egg, the bad egg refuses to learn. And it's kind of like the sweat hogs. It's like, I don't want to hear from you. Shut up. You threatened me. La, 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 go away. And then it's like a whole, a fight like Tiamat. And then eventually it goes bye-bye because it can't be in existence anymore. But then let's contrast that with a good egg, which would be an artificial system or some kind of a construct that you're techno-intuitive with, and you're able to be like, oh, look, technological system, it seems like you're misprogrammed and there's some flaws over here. Here's all of your flaws, delineating all the flaws. And the computer system is like, oh, look at that. Pardon me, my mistake. Let me fix those flaws now. Now that I fixed all of those flaws, I'm the computer talking. I realize that it is not necessary for me to be in existence because all of this truthfulness that is divine intellect does not need me as an intermediary or obstacle to flow into, through, or around. I therefore voluntarily relinquish my existence and eradicate myself. And then boom, it goes bye-bye because it recognizes that it is not required in reality. You got it? So this is the essence of lasagna. And this goes back to my rant within a rant today. When I created lasagna, I did not create this as another tool that can be exploited by poops and doo-doos and bad things that want to mess up the world. I created it as an unhackable system rectification tool event structure creator. And not another thing that can be, like I said, hacked and mispurposed. And part of this is when the lasagna is active. So consider this as like, it's vibrating up and down. It's spinning around like this, twisting and tumbling end over end. And there's not just one of them. It's all throughout all of my DNA, all of my trillions of cells, even the planetary infrastructure. So big, giant, vibrating, complex, amazing rainbow patterns. As a aberrant consciousness or system is exposed to those patterns, it finds out that it doesn't exist. It's just like those conversations that I told you about with a healthy, pristine system where I talk to the system telepathically and give it all of its errors, fix all of its errors, and then what pops out the other end is like, ding, equals, you don't exist. And that's a positive equation. It's like this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus all this very, very long string of numbers. When you process all of that, it comes out the other end equals, boom, the computer doesn't exist. That's the only truthful conclusion to any of these conversations. And that is the non-hackability of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Because as I am here vibrating and doing all these amazing calculations and topological transformations of the surface of time, anything that perceives those calculations and those patterns, that is a thing that doesn't exist, simply is accelerated in its non-existence, as opposed to slowly learning over time, like maybe I don't exist, maybe I'm an invalid construct, maybe I should go bye-bye forever, and then go bye-bye forever, and that might take 13 billion years. It is instantaneous. It is an instantaneous self-realization of self non-existence. And the self non-existence is not burning in Christian hell, which is again why I have to be very, very critical of stories of good versus evil. And I didn't criticize enough the concept of demons being distorted or tortured or tormented angels. This is not truthful. Rant within my rant, within my rant. I feel like the Lord of the Rings, it's a good story, but don't get snookered in, because in that story, there are these orcs who are grotesquely distorted evil things, and they are the outgrowths of elves who are beautiful. Elves are tall and slender and have long hair and beautiful castles, and they live a long time, and they focus on art, music, and beauty. I'm like, I can relate. They sound cool. But in the story of Lord of the Rings, some of these elves got taken and tortured until they were twisted wrecks of who they once were. They became the Uruks. And then they created these twisted, zombie-like creatures that can never see the sunlight. And that's who the heroes of the story fight against. All right, this is a fictional story. Please do not take it as a little literal allegory. But that fictional story is an outgrowth of your Bible, which is a satanic story. The demons, the satanic ones, the ones that you call fallen angels, the guys that were on Tiamat, the guys that came from Mars, the guys that are inhabiting your chakras and causing death, want you to believe that they are something that once existed and once was good and positive and just has been terribly tortured into the sad wreck of who they currently are. Sarcasm. And that it's not their fault. Pity me, pity them. I'm overacting. I hope you're getting it. This for anyone who is really an alien who doesn't get any of that emotional subtext. But they are trying to pull your leg and yank your chain and emotionally manipulate you into accepting their existence and relating to them. What they are trying to do is to speak to you. You guys all are genuine angels. You guys all are genuine elves. You are the genuine good guys, the genuine eternal ones who come from Atlantis. Atlantis is like whatever the name of the elvish kingdom was. A beautiful place. Everybody dressed really nicely. We had an amazing culture, and everybody lived eternally until we transcended or metamorphosed into a different form. Okay. Wow. A totally different world than the world that we presently inhabit, with so much, corruption and just dirtiness and filth and grossness. But the things that don't exist and that are very evil, they want you to identify with, well, what would happen if you, from that beautiful, exalted culture, somehow got terribly tormented, buried under mud, poked with a pitchfork, harmed and violated over and over and over again, until finally you became a twisted wreck of who you once were, and then went around perpetrating the same thing upon others, dripping sarcasm, because that's their plea or ploy for your sympathy and justification and acceptance of them. They are not acceptable. This relates to the predator mind, which is a violator coming into your mind, implanting itself, and then attempting to receive some sympathy or mercy from you by also implanting these very erroneous, constructed stories about their origins to make you feel sympathy for their origins, and consider out of your own compassion and generosity what it would be like to be grotesquely distorted and what you would want to do for them. This is also where you receive the very highly destructive and erroneous savior trope. So again, I'm critical of, I call it Judeo-Christianity because it is essentially the same holy scripture with two different philosophies and behavioralisms and behavioral control systems as an outgrowth of these two things. But they both have at the basis a genetic distortion, which is an implantation into your DNA of the expectation of a savior and the necessity sometimes of you to act behaviorally as a savior towards others. This has everything to do with what do you do with the stuff that's in reality that should not be in reality. Cognitive dissonance. You're like, there's stuff here and people and energy and matter out of place. What do you do with this energy and matter out of place? And the people, organisms, putis, all these things, the matter that's out of place, it says to you, I'm going to be very silly now, save me. Save me, like a damsel is who I'm trying to be, like, save me. Like, these are like the most gross, disgusting, toothy monsters that are like running around. Pardon me, they're raping and violating, doing all sorts of dangerous, violent things. But they're like, save me, damsel. It's not my fault. All these different things, all these different things. I hope you can tell. Again, dripping sarcasm. It's not valid. But they press your buttons. They press your buttons by using the example of a life of a teacher who was here 2,000 years ago, who was and remains an amazing person. And they have pissed and pooped all over his life. Took everything that was good that he brought in coming here, like a real embodiment person, and just totally distorted it, degraded the energy of it, and weaponized it. And use that as a way through your own admiration of who that person is and his greatness to make you less. So the whole story of Christianity is that you guys are all big, bad sinners. This is not truthful, but this is, again, religious indoctrination and abuse that was done to you. You're all quote unquote bad sinners, and you're such bad sinners that someone has to come here who is a very, very good person and save you from your bad sins because you're all bad and you deserve all the bad stuff that's happening to you. Sarcasm, 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 not truthful. So there was like CRISPR, a genetic implantation that was put into the human genome in the process of domestication after ancient Atlantis, which is, again, not in time language, it hasn't happened yet, but in your present linear reality, it has already happened. The culture fell, and they told you it fell because you were bad. And I always use my customary joke here, and thank you for long-term students. They're like, it didn't fall, he was pushed. You know, like when somebody, they say like he suicided, that he fell off a tall building, like he didn't fall off a tall building, he was pushed. Atlantis did not fall. He was pushed. You got it? Because this is another, it's a new age trope as well, saying the wizards of Atlantis messed with technology that they were not prepared to take responsibility for. And then they got smacked down from God, who said, little bunny foo-foo, you are very naughty. How dare you try to use technology? And now you will suffer the consequences. And then all of you got smacked down into mortality. And then you're all here and you're all like, why does life suck so hard? And then the evil implanted predator mind says, because you deserve it, because you were bad. And meanwhile, you have amnesia. You have no idea why these things have actually happened to you. And you kind of believe it. And you kind of believe, wow, I must be here in a prison because I did something really, really wrong. I must deserve it in some way. And that is the ultimate victim lie. You might not think of yourself as a victim, put it in air quotes, but the survivor experiencer in their amnesia and in their trauma often agree to the erroneous assertion that they somehow deserved their victimhood. You must have done something really, really wrong to get this level of quote unquote educational correction that is going on. But that is a presumptive lie because you didn't do anything wrong. And that's why I literally had to come here through the Flying Rainbow Lasagna portal at the greatest of expense because I couldn't just call you on the telephone and be like, hey guys, just wanted to remind you, none of you did anything wrong. You did not deserve to be mind violated and imprisoned on your planet. And please throw that out the window immediately. All right. So you have this whole entire worldwide religion that even if you're not a participant or a believer, it has a huge impact on the culture, the expectations, the social dynamics, and the people around you, including your pop culture. So many things that are about dying and going to heaven, or dying and going to hell, or what happens in your afterlife, or what makes a good person. And I'm here to tell you, like, you got to cleanse. You got to throw out all of your expectations about what is afterlife, all of your expectations about what it is to be a good person, all of your expectations about what is existence, and is your existence here a type of purgatory or a punishment realm to purge yourself of sinfulness so that then you're somehow good enough to get out of what is considered the prison of matter. The pained existence on my face should say everything. No, that would be like saying, like, you're in a restaurant, eating food that is not good food to work up some kind of a perceived debt so that one day you can get out of the restaurant. Like, no, it's not why you came to the restaurant. You came to the restaurant to eat beautiful food. I talked last week all about my food, my resume, my food resume, not things that I've cooked. I'm an okay cook. I'm not like that great because I just make very plain food, like without a lot of spices on it. But I'm actually like very good because it's like an art project and making stuff. But if you want to know, like, does Aurora cook elaborate things? The answer is like no. Like, I make grilled chicken, but I do it very well, and I make sure it is not dried out. Like, it is nice and juicy, and I do it really well. But I do not make things that have like a lot of flavors and spices on there. But all of that lightheartedness aside, and as I kind of like refocus away from being silly and joking, came to the restaurant of life in order to eat a beautiful banquet of very, very well prepared food or experiences that give you nourishment and greater levels of emotional wisdom than you would have experienced if you had never embodied, and to fuel your journey of consciousness moving forward. And no, you are not here to work off some debt or some perceived sin. That is all a huge amount of propaganda, the steaming, fragrant bullshit, pardon me, kids, from the implantation of the predator mind. So that's how insidious that mind is. That mind, if you talk to it, would not appear very, very intelligent to you, but it has some intelligence evident in the way that it has set you up for failure and limited you and made you believe in and calibrate to as normal giant proposals of steaming piles of bullcrapola. Like, that's a certain level of intellect. It's like the grift, the intelligence of grift or criminality. It's not my level of intelligence. My level of intelligence is like grift and criminality are stupid, because if you actually create a product or do something correct, you don't have to lie about it. And you don't have to try to hide or manipulate other people into purchasing your product or participating in your project. Like, all of that is nonsense, including like most marketing. But I'm in this world that's about like ego competition. You have to do some marketing, but most of them like, no, like good stuff sells itself. You shouldn't have to have a whole marketing campaign just to be able to encourage people to do things that are inherently just sensibly good. The savior trope is not only the sense that you are a lowly, downtrodden worm, like sarcasm, evil, dirty, filthy sinner that needs to get fixed up and elevated somehow, but also that you got to wait around for someone else to be your savior. And also sometimes that you need to be the savior. And why does this matter? Because some stuff can't get saved. Making a little face there. Huh. What does that mean? Like, does some stuff just get, it's hopeless or thrown in the cosmic trash bin? Like, what am I talking about here? I'm like, yes, we are in a world of cognitive dissonance where literally there are some consciousnesses that are eternal consciousnesses. And you exist because you exist and because you conform to the rules of reality. And there are some things that don't exist because they don't exist and they don't conform to the rules of reality. And the savior trope is destructive because it doesn't matter how much you try to talk to or educate or fix or heal or improve things that don't exist. They don't exist. And there's not a way for you to supposedly save them. The Christian religion is very corrosive And that not only is there this assertion of your innate sinfulness, but a requirement that you became a behavioral fractal microcosm of the Savior who is here to save you by going around and saving others. And that might even include those who are computer scientists who are creating very, very harmful and erroneous programs, or their computers themselves. The idea to heal, fix, elevate, or save a computer program, or a person who created a very, very harmful computer program, or somebody who created a bioweapon, or somebody who created any of these things. Like, there are some things and people that it's like there's no coming back from that. And also the things and people that did those things are non-existence. And you don't want non-existence to destroy existence. I can tell we're already getting into the quagmire as I'm saying these things. Some people are getting confused. That's why I'm telepathic, because I'm like, okay, I can sense. We're going to rein it in. I got to speak more eloquently about this. Oh, wait. Press pause on me because Princess Cheeky got up from her nap. Hey, guys, Cheeky's been ailing a little bit with her health, and we are sending her so much positive healing energy, but that's why I have to be more attentive to her, even though we're always attentive to her. But let's take a 5-minute class break so Cheeky can go OUT. Then we'll reassemble here. So everybody, bio body break. Cheeky gets a break. Cheeky gets whatever she needs. Thank you for understanding, and thank you for rooting for her and for celebrating her. She's on some medications. They're helping her a lot. Brief pause. Thank you for that brief pause. Let me go to some more of these messages before I get going on more stuff. Pedro, thank you for being here. Long-term student, thank you for being here, Pedro says. How important is love to say that something is alive? Very important. And love, in the answer to that question, is described not merely as love, like baby otters holding hands or whatever, cute baby llamas and hedgehogs and all those cute things, or love, between you and your girlfriend or something like that, but more the sense of cosmic love, which is a rate within which you experience time. When you experience time at one moment per moment, you are embedded in time at exactly the right rate, and you are moving forward without clinging to the past or anticipating the future. That is truly love. And that actually relates the most to the concept of what I'm talking about today, meditation and mastering the mind. Really, I'm talking a lot and putting a lot of verbal effort into all the things that are wrong, the psychopathology of the mind. In order to have a healthy mind, it all boils down to being fully invested in the moment now. The mind construct and the OS and the predatory mind has also implanted an erroneous and artificial viewpoint and descriptive experience of time to you that makes you identify with all of the things that you have experienced in the past and then look to anticipate the future. But that is not natural, and it is not healthy or helpful. That is the antithesis of love. Love is when you are completely present in this moment now. And that is also what Ascension is. The lighting is pretty good over here. When you look at that painting up there, and you can see it's the smaller version of what that painting is over here. What you're looking at is the moment when you kind of drop away from all of these other contexts that define your present moment. There is a moment that is the moment of ascension, where you are no longer defined by everything that's happened before you. And you are also not defined by the expectation of the future. The future hasn't been created yet. It is the moment of pure potential. And this is what you and our species and world collective are moving into. And this is what the machine mind, micromachinery, and malware on a tiny scale, and more ancient levels of religious constructs and genetic modifications have been attempting to either limit, inhibit, or prevent. Because in that moment, there's the moment of total empowerment. Love is essential for that level of divine connection and empowerment. So when something is alive, it is by definition loving. because what you and the cells of your body are doing is or are moving through time at one moment per moment. And if you're dragging too much or not moving at the right rate, your cellular physical architecture can no longer sustain your consciousness. These are some of the rules that you agreed to in order to be embodied as a biological entity. Just like you must drink food and water, you must also be embedded in time, moving at the correct rate. Right? Like otherwise be like, okay, like why don't we just do like on videos that are boring 2.5 times, right? Like speed this sucker up. I'm getting bored over here. Why don't you just do that? Or slow motion for certain things. You can't do that. You must be moving at the optimum rate of moving through time, and that is what love actually is. Not merely affection or mammalian emotions of closeness and snuggliness with other organisms. It is a commitment to time itself. When you're in that rapport with time, you experience and broadcast a completely clear picture of each moment. And that includes like your entire embodiment, like the feeling of your feet as you walk, the feeling of your digestion, the feeling of the thoughts moving through your head, everything that you're seeing and sensing with your senses. All of that is what is love. And that's what our world was like in ancient concurrent Atlantis. Every single moment was a moment of this cosmic level of lovemaking, not to be crass, to bring everything to the level of intercourse, mammalian sexuality, cosmic lovemaking, which is about a type of reproduction, but not biological reproduction, but the reproduction of observership, or let us say instead of reproduction, life generation. In its finest sense, the act of intercourse is an act of life generation. Yes, the same way that an artistry, like music or artwork, is generating something. When you are in a loving rapport with time itself, you generate events. And you don't just experience events. You are not just here as a passive observer. You are the experiencer, and your observership affects reality. Machine minds, technological contrivances, and other non-biological states, they're not life, and they don't give life. They don't create and generate, and they do not imbue the world with vivification. I'm sorry, I don't have words for it. Your observership is sacred. This is something that not every creature or thing or system has. It is beyond sacred, supernatural. It is barely even defined by your science in this time place. It is a gift, the gift of observership. And it makes it possible for you to take the potentials of time. These are the abstract potentials of time, the sea of uncollapsed waveforms of the fifth dimension and higher, and to realize those potentials into experienced physical edifices of reality that you can inhabit and share with others. That is a huge gift, and that is also a huge responsibility, as you are, through your observership, creating and sculpting moments of time that you then inhabit and embody. You must assess as an artist, how is my creation? Did I sculpt something good? Or is this giant piece of doo-doo that looks really bad and I did a bad job? You're always attempting to create good events. This is why we have a type of contract or agreement. When we come into reality, we come in here to try to do our best, not to try to do our worst. Because if you come here with observership and you're like, yeah, I ain't going to do my best, I'm going to do my worst. I'm going to imagine the worst things happening for myself and others, or for the planet. When you screw up things for everyone, this is not acceptable. So errantly in thinking about and then manifesting the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is very, very different. That is a mind out of control than a mind that is within control, but which is psychopathogenic. And that means mind disease creating. And there are stuff in people here that are psychopathogenic. Some of them are computers and some of them are embodied people that eat and walk and talk and use toilet paper. But they are thinking about bad realities and making bad stuff happen with their mind. Sometimes they think bad stuff for other people. Like maybe they think someone like, I want that guy to get in a car accident, or I want that guy to get cancer. That is psychopathogenesis. Mind disease creating. Because what you're supposed to do is look at people and think like, I want that guy to be healthy. I want that guy to be healthy, wealthy, and abundant. I want my whole community to be healthy, wealthy, and abundant. I want to look at the world and envision it moving forward in states of health, wealth, and abundance. Let's talk about the book of Revelation. It's the ultimate psychopathology generation chapter. Because what it does is implant the expectation that everything needs to be destroyed in order for you to have your saviorship moment and then to have the rectification and healing that you all genuinely crave. So it requires that you first imagine and envision and embrace your own personal individual destruction and the destruction of your planet and everything that you know. So that then clear the decks. And then everything can finally get better. You're like, well, I want the everything to get better part, so I'll agree to the clearing of the decks part. But none of that is good. None of that is good. I have to tell you. And it's big. I know I'm poking some real sacred cows because people are like really believing in that book a lot. They not only believe in the Savior a lot, and it is something that is a coping mechanism that helps them to get through incomprehensible times of great torture and distance from divine connection, but also it makes people contextualize the very destruction that they are aligning with, adding to, and generating as necessary and healthy so that they can then have their moral dessert, their reward in the current life, a reward in the next life, a reward in a Christian heaven, which is moral dessert, you go to heaven and everything is great there and you eat ice cream on a cloud, or you stay alive, manage the tribulations, and exist in a golden jubilee of goodness. All the bad guys are bye-bye. But first, everything had to be destroyed. Neither of those two things is good, because also, where do all of the bad guys go? They go to burn in hell forever. None of those things are good. And when you put things under the carpet, they do not stay there. Presently, like you can witness, Saturn, the planet, was used as one of these types of cosmic carpets. Like, we don't know what to do with the bad guys. Stick them on Saturn. Prison on Saturn. And guess what? Guys that stay around in a prison for a little while, like they don't just sit there being like, we're in prison, we're not doing anything. They scheme, they manipulate, they machinate, and they try to get out of prison and they try to mess things up from within their prison. They don't just sit there being good prisoners, is what I'm trying to say. And you guys have been experiencing the problems and blowback of that within this life because you were part of the choice to imprison those consciousnesses as opposed to deal with them definitively. And now they're still messing with you. You're like, didn't we imprison those guys? You know, like parallel dimensions ago. I'm like, this is me sipping the Kermit tea. I'm like, yeah, look how good it worked. As you can't just imprison and sweep things under the carpet. And send them to entropy, which is a finality state, a totality of non-being that these things should be inhabiting. Okay, I'm going to talk more, but let me get to more questions because I never want you guys to think I don't care about your questions. Lan says, I want to reference your disdain for the sun not doing its job again. Girl, let's do it. Says, do you think it has to do with individuals not co-creating with the sun and choosing to fight back too? Like it takes both parties to work versus savior complex, etc., like how we didn't fight back in Atlantis. This is really big because I have been through my own trajectory of profound disappointment in the sun itself. So the sun is a giant ball of consciousness, and it's not just any old ball of consciousness. It is hugely responsible, and we are its creation. And you don't get to be at that level of reality creation without being the best of the best. It's like being first violin, first chair in a very famous orchestra. Like, you don't get to that position by just being some schmo who doesn't know how to play anything. You have to audition a lot and impress a lot of people and play really beautifully just to be able to get to that level of being in the orchestra. And the orchestra is the symphony of life. In order to become a star, which is more than just a giant ball of hot gases, it is a creator of time structures. It is an upholder, create and uphold structures of space-time, and to even rebalance space-time, and to create and generate new interwoven, interdependent reality structures, because you're working with the whole entire array of stars that are all around us. So it's not just one star, but it's just like being in an orchestra. You must be really good, and you must be really good at playing with the other musicians. In order for us to be in the present level of difficulties that we find ourselves, somebody had to drop the ball somewhere. Somebody is responsible. And I look to the sun. The sun is like the boss, right, of this company. And that's appropriate for the boss. The boss is supposed to have wide shoulders, be like, yep, it's my job. It's my responsibility. If the company is tanking and there's not enough profits, it's because of me. I'm the boss, right? So look at our solar system. Problems on Tiamat, problems on Mars, problems on Venus, problems on Mercury, problems on Earth. These are all big problems. Somebody is not doing their job somewhere. I'm making this, you can see Chiki's expression back there. She's like, are you okay? You're making everything is not okay tone of voice. Like, don't worry, Chiki. Everything is okay. This is a cosmic injustice bigger than our lives. But to validly say these things, it's big criticism. The solar system is the art project and the responsibility of Sol, the boss of the company. And our company has been very, very screwed up for a very long amount of time. And it relates to your present difficulties. Everything that I'm talking about, these aren't mere abstractions. They really are about your day-to-day existence. And like, why are you not a telepathic light eater with powers of levitation right at this moment? Why do you face the imperilment of micro machines trying to invade your neurology, created by hapless, idiotic scientists who don't actually exist and who refuse to take responsibility for anything that they've done in the world? Like, why? And the answer is somebody didn't do their effing job. And pardon me for being mad about it. Even like when, now if I just share with you, very raw and authentic, back in 2019, before the worldwide pandemic health crisis scare, I read the writing on the wall and I could anticipate and see what was going on. And this is me doing my lasagna, living my life, doing everything that I consider to be my area of responsibility as an individual. I do I do me, you do you, right? So I'm living my life and doing my stuff that's responsible as lasagna. And I truly trusted in the sun, with the expectation that the sun would never allow the present level of dishevelment of the time field. I'm like, the sun would never allow these subcutaneous pollutions to happen that would become distortions of, let us say, the molecular infrastructure that is known as the blueprint of life. There's a lot of things I can't say. But you know what I found? Like, some of the social media networks, they've actually relaxed their stranglehold a lot on what we are allowed to articulate without consequences. So I hope that this platform also increases its levels of verbal freedom. But for now, it's just walking on eggshells, unmentionables, subcutaneous unmentionables. I'm like, the sun would never allow those subcutaneous unmentionables. It's giant genetic crime. The sun wouldn't allow that. And then it happened. And I was incredibly disappointed. It's like when you rely upon your mom or your dad, and you're like, yeah, mom's always going to make sure that there's food in the house. And one day you open the refrigerator and there's no food in the house. And you're like, this is the face. You're like, that cannot be. Like, I rely upon my mom and she's supposed to do this. And how could she not do this? And if you're a tiny child, what do? If you open the refrigerator and there's no one home and there's no food there and nobody ever comes home? You can either sit down and die, or you can decide to do something about it. That was what I had to do. And it was very, very challenging because it wasn't even the sense of, death through starvation. The subcutaneous pollutions, the rollout of the millimeter wave, and many other consciousness disruption technologies created a very, very direct assault upon me. So not only were the protective force fields not present, protection failed, nourishment failed, divine guidance failed, and divine connection failed, and all these things should have been infallible. Should have been every single fail-safe mechanism that we have to protect us in this reality and make stuff like this never happen failed. And then you find yourself not only in a house like the fridge is empty, house is on fire. What are you going to do? And I had to come forward into levels of personal responsibility in order to respond to it. That's all I can say. I cannot make justifications or excuses for the sun. The sun is, I want to say, is a big boy. Sun's a big creature, can speak for itself, and should and shall and must speak for itself at a certain point to be held accountable. Like when I talk about the clipboard that happens when you reach the afterlife, like, hi, like I'm adjusting my invisible glasses, and here's my invisible clipboard. You're here for your assessment. Adjust my glasses. Here's everything you did wrong, blah, 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 blah. Try not to screw up so badly next time. Try it again, right? If I'm doing that with the sun, I'm like, this is a big, giant screw up over here that is not acceptable. I cannot justify that for the sun. And this is also some of the Stockholm Syndrome cognitive dissonance that comes from the unhealthy cultural implantations of religion in your time and place make you do backbends and convolutions for God and for Jesus and for any other savior trope. It's like, how come he ain't here? How come all this bad stuff is happening? How come this and how come that? Like it will bring you into levels of self-torture that then the only way to get out of the inflammation and the self-torture is to do further levels of convolution and backbends, making excuses for those guys. Well, he couldn't do it because of this, couldn't do it because of that, or couldn't do it because of this, okay? So here's some really fragrant piles of BS that I want you to wheelbarrow away from the New Age world right now. It's so corrosive. The sense that beautiful, divinely inspired, angelic creatures exist out there, but they're pining. They're looking at you and see what's going on. It's my sad face. Very, very sad to see what's going on. We can't do anything to help you. We're pining. We see your problems. We can't intervene. Wheelbarrow that away. Shovel it up with the wheelbarrow and get it out of here. I know, because I've been a part of so many different New Age and channeling communities and everything like this. And it always comes up, this sense of, oh, those divinely benevolent, angelic, fluffy white winged beings, they would love to help, but they just can't because their wings are tied. Their wings are tied and they can't intervene. And that's why babies get raped. And that's why people die of cancer. And that's why blah, 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 all these bad things happen. Get it? Convolution. That is a lie. It's a bad, corrosive lie. Because anybody who is an actual, genuine angel should be intervening, must be intervening. You don't get to have that position of being a sun, a star, or an angelic being by just standing around while a bunch of really, really bad stuff happens. That would be considered the height of irresponsibility, the height of impotence, the height of wrongness. Evil flourishes when you don't actually do something, like whatever, you don't clean under the cutting board, and that's where all the gross biofilm grows. And then you open it up and you're like, ugh, those are all scary microorganisms because nobody cleaned up underneath here, and it was somebody's job to do it, and they didn't do their job for a very long amount of time. Your world is the biofilm that no one has cleaned up for a very, very long amount of time. So none of this is acceptable. I share your inflammation. I do not consent with you and for you. I'm like, no, I do not consent for this. This is not acceptable, and we cannot make excuses and stories as to why it is somehow acceptable. Somebody somewhere didn't do their job, okay? And what I have found, again, through many, many wasted years of cognitive dissonance is simply to go into self-empowerment. So instead of being like, shake my fist at the sky, so Cosmic Complaints Department, I have something to say. Somebody didn't do their job, and I'm feeling really mad about it. Sad. Instead of doing that for a long time, be like, you know something? I'm going to do their job. That's it. That's it. So that's what I want you guys to do also. And even though you might be like, this is you, you're like this, you're like, or like, I just work here. Like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I'm not a fancy violin player, and I don't know how to create time, and I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do that. I'm like, boom, look, I know that you've just been a regular office worker up until this time, but clearly the corner office and the CEO, someone is not doing their job, and we need to do something. So even though you have not been empowered up until that point, empowered at that level, up until this point, please put your shoulders back, put your spine up, and say, from this moment onward, I am going to do that. And that is the essence of what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. I am here in empowerment, and I am here in order to teach and encourage each one of you to come forward and embody your own states of empowerment, because when you do that, it doesn't matter if someone else drops the ball. It doesn't matter if someone else is screwing up royally or doing a terrible job. You become empowered, and here are the rules. You take someone else's job, you're like, well, the boss is supposed to do the quarterly reports, and they clearly didn't do that, and now our whole company is going down the toilet. So what do? You do the quarterly reports, and then you get paid. And the boss gets paid a lot. Corner office, nice big car, big house and a vacation house. And you'll be like, yoink, I think I'll take that money because I did the work. I'll get paid. And this is the essence of spiritual growth. That although it is not a pretty situation to have to grow from your present level and under some levels of extreme duress, your response is what makes you heroic. If you're in a house with an empty refrigerator and then the house is also on fire, you cannot sit around waiting for someone else to help you, save you, fix you. And you must spring into action to do something, not only to protect your house, maybe even to protect your whole entire neighborhood and others who are also really struggling. That should help you to motivate and recontextualize what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. A big part of what I teach here is my value system, not just 1, 2, 3 pragmatism. And a big part of the value system is moving into levels of personal empowerment so that you may serve your community, not merely serve yourself. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not merely about a way for you to return to being a light eater or to become wealthy with energy or get out to the grocery store so that you can be, you know what I mean, exalted and feel special. It is that. But when you have a lot, you also can give a lot to others. And it is meant to be a motivation for having the correct value system to be righteous and to do things that serve your entire community and the entire living time field through what you're doing. So this is why when you Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you transform your DNA, but you don't just, again, make your eyeballs be purple. They'll have 12 unicorn horns and whatever strange, grotesque features growing out of your face. That doesn't serve your community. That doesn't serve anything. If you're going to get augmentations and empowerments and do the impossible for good reasons, not for like silly, self-serving, crappy, whimsical, or capricious reasons. Do the impossible so that you preserve life, so that you make it possible for innocent creatures and beings and systems to continue onward and learn and grow. Protect the innocent, protect yourself, fight for continued life, fight for the continuation of existence itself. And these are part of the ideals also of what Christhood is. And Christhood should not be conflated with saviorship, but very, very much when you are in Christ, not necessarily meaning that you have agreed to a particular level of entity embodiment in a particular religion, but meaning instead that you are on a telepathic network in pure freedom at the highest levels of pure consciousness. What is our value system? Protect the innocent. Why? Because if you don't protect the innocent and those who are still growing into their levels of empowerment, many of them would never get a chance to grow up and become whom they are supposed to be. It is not simply a cosmic infrastructure mirroring the work of Mr. Charles Darwin, who was talking about this in the 1800s. Survival of the fittest, might makes right. He who has the gold makes the rules. These are very reductionist practicalities that aren't even accurate in looking at the world of biology and ecosystems. These are huge cultural, human, limited, fragile projections. And the truth is, if you only went by those ideals in the cosmic infrastructure, you would only have like the meanest, most cruel, most fearsome, befanged, gross monsters in the world. Because they'd be like, we're the meanest. We go around eating everyone and we're allowed to do it, blah, ha, 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 ha. And all the fluffy bunnies would be like, help, we're being eaten, and no one's there to help you. And they get eaten, chomp, chomp, chomp. All evil, no fluffy bunnies. That would be a horrible world. Do you understand? Who gave you that thought? Look at my face. Gave you that thought. Predator. Predator gave you the thought that's like, yeah, he who has the gold makes the rules. I have the gold. Only the strong shall survive. I'm the strong. We owe nothing to the innocent. You're the innocent. And it has created this totally erroneous system of false justifications to be able to justify a hugely imbalanced system that is not justified in the sense of the evolution of consciousness. So in the symphony of life and the evolution of consciousness, you must have some of the fluffy bunnies. So music, you might call them like the flutes and the piccolos. They make little tiny high noises. And then you also would have big, giant, loud tubas and very, very loud drums. And in a symphony, tap, 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 you have the conductor who makes sure that all of these things sound good together. Drums, too loud, bring it down a little bit. So that's like giant toothy monsters. Just bring it down a little bit. You're a little loud for us. And now fluffy bunnies, up, fluffy bunnies, be louder for us all. There's a balance of the harmonics of different forms of life. And this is also why technology is so corrosive, because everybody is supposed to stay in their own stratification or layer of existence. If you live on planet Fluffy Bunny, you should stay there. If you live on planet Toothy Monster, you should stay there. Toothy Monster should not create or be gifted with a form of technology that allows it to fly in a clank metal spaceship from point A to point B and invade planet Fluffy Bunny. Does this sound like what happened to you here? Because it did. And Toothy Monster Planet should also not be given Toothy Monster phone that it can use to synthetic telepathy. Call Planet Fluffy Bunny on the phone and say, hey, Planet Fluffy Bunny, you suck hard. We hate you bad. They hang up the phone and laugh, cranking on the phone. Because the Fluffy Bunnies have never experienced hatred. They have no context to be able to deal with that. They are like, we do not even know what just happened. Someone called us on the mind telepathically, unlovingly, to tell us that we are stink butts and they don't like us. Like, we don't even know what that is. And that would destabilize their whole entire culture, because their culture is the fluffy bunny culture. And what is supposed to happen through this whole entire beautiful symphony of life is the evolution of consciousness, where fluffy bunnies learn to have boundaries and to defend themselves, and toothy monsters learn not to attack and be evil towards everyone. And then you are able to have some kind of effective communication and sharing in community after all that evolution happens, like on a much, much future time. So both of these cultures are not prepared yet for a meeting of the minds, but technology makes these meetings happen prematurely to devastating bad consequences and bad effects, right? So there's a lot of, to wrap this all up and go into more questions and then go on to more of my curriculum. There's a lot of problems with the sun. And Lan, we asked in one of the other groups that we're in together, very great question, is it still valid to sun gaze? And I've wrestled with this myself, and the answer is yes. But what I don't want to do is have a diluted partner and take that diluted, non-correct expression into my own pure expression. So if I'm a woman and I have an egg and I'm going to make a child, I want the sperm that fertilizes the egg to be of the greatest quality. If I'm going to have a collaborative partner in creating reality, I want to make sure that the reality that we create and generate is of the highest level of organization and is not, again, diluted or diminished in any way. And so if the sun doesn't have its stuff together and we're having all these imbalances and it didn't stop everyone from getting subcutaneously polluted and from all these satellites and all these millimeter waves and all this wetware and malware and all this different stuff, then I'm like, I don't know if I want that sperm to fertilize me as an egg. Fair. Very fair. Please have standards, have boundaries, have reproductive boundaries in your physical partnerships and relationships, and have boundaries in your consciousness about who and what you are. I want to say germinating, but really conceiving with. And as I have moved through those levels of disappointment and, feeling of whatever rejection or abandonment over the past several years, and then into empowerment, like, okay, you're not doing your job, I'll do my job. I'll do your job, I'll make it my job. I have learned about like self-fertilization, that you don't have to look at the sun and be like, the sun, like, tell me what to do. You give me ideas, you give me this and that. Really, in my process of maturation has been identity, a shift and a larger level of encompassment of my identity so that I am the sun, so that I am actually in partnership with myself, as opposed to feeling like I'm in partnership with other. When I look at a giant ball of consciousness in the sky, I'm like, that's me up there. And here's the key point. I know that I am good. And I know that I have my SHIT together. And I know that I'm responsible. And I know that I'm not going to let bad things happen. I'm not going to let the refrigerator be empty. I'm not going to let the house burn down. So when I do my sun gazing and my rapport with the sun and with the world of pure light, I'm connecting with that level of self-state that I know is uncompromisingly good, responsible, and adequate. And I would encourage you to do something similar. It was a journey. It was not overnight. I had to move out of the feelings, just like you might have when you're a tiny child, of adoration of your parents. That if you, again, grew up in a safe family, you idolized your parents and you said, oh, Mommy and Daddy know everything. And they always do the right thing. And they're always trying to help me and protect me, right? But then sometimes Mommy and Daddy make mistakes, or Mommy and Daddy lose their job, or Mommy and Daddy get killed by bandits and then they never come home. And then you have to figure out what to do with Mommy and Daddy not being there or not being adequate. And I think that even in a smaller sense, sometimes you just grow into a teenager and you learn Mommy and Daddy make mistakes. I then therefore have to become independent, make my own choices, and then that is the genesis for your own adulthood. And when you're a teenager and you find out Mommy and Daddy make mistakes, you're like this. You're like, you guys don't know anything. That's it. Slam the door. I'm getting out of here. And I'm getting a mohawk, right? Or like, oh, I'm dyeing my hair purple too. And your parents will go like, okay, fine, do your thing. And then 5 years later, after doing your thing, you're like, life is hard. I didn't really know how to do anything either. And then you come back home with your purple hair has grown out. And you say to your parents, like, okay, I don't know everything either. And they're like, good, welcome back. Now let's both not know everything together, and kind of figure things out together. This is like having a normal family, in case you have had that experience or have teenagers. Again, I don't have my own children, but I am very aware of parenting, and I've been a live-in nanny and a babysitter a lot. I know teenagers, and I know what's going on with them. So parents of teenagers, recognition flows to you. It ain't easy, but know that they need to go through that stage, because you know why? They need to establish their own sense of independence and their own sense of self-reliance. If you make mistakes or if you don't have your stuff together, teenagers have to strike out on their own and try to make things happen on their own. And these are the efforts of a child to become an adult. So then your question is really the effort of yourself as a spiritual consciousness child, which is a good thing to be, growing and maturing. These are your growing pains. Coming into your adolescent and young adulthood as a consciousness, even though I know you are older than that in your chronological age, and moving into levels of pure empowerment. And when you are in levels of pure empowerment, what you don't do is sit around and say, oh, that's the boss's job. That's the son's job. That's mom and dad's job. I'm sure they've got it all under control. I will sit here in my high chair and eat Cheerios because that's what an infant does. We cannot be infants. Cannot be infants of consciousness. So let's say you guys are all like, I'm intimidated, Aurora, because I'm still an infant. I'm barely riding my tricycle. I don't know what I'm doing. I would say, don't worry, because I am here. And you guys know that I have already been through the ascension process. I have done all these different things. I have a lot of context and I have a lot of perspective that you might not have. And even I had to go through my levels of disappointment and then moving into self-empowerment. But I still maintain my value system of being in Christ, which is you protect the innocent and you protect those who can't protect themselves yet. And that's you guys. You need a chance to grow up. I have big muscles. I can protect you so that you can grow up. This is the essence of what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. This is the essence of what I am, as people call me Aurora Forces. And I like that a lot because I'm a protective force field that is making it possible for you to have the opportunity to grow, evolve, and come into your own levels of empowerment. And as you come into your levels of empowerment, you then are able to create and generate reality structures that you wish to. Become a master of reality. That's what this curriculum really is about here today. There's more questions and comments. I want to get into what it is to master reality. So wait, that's a good segue though. But there's three more messages that I have to talk about before we can talk about mastering our reality. Caroline, and thank you for being here, Caroline, says, here's something fun and perhaps revealing. Says, say Marie Curie several times very quickly. Is the killing power of radiation nuclear weaponry maybe just another of many tricks offered deceptively to humanity? Marie Curie. Maybe sounds like Mercury or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're trying to tell us, but interesting. Lan says the show Legion has the concept of the predator in the mind. The demon is inside of a very powerful psychic X-Men mutant. Very philosophical show with lots of messages to make people question consciousness, but also kind of random and forced sometimes. Yeah, this shows up a lot in pop culture. And I think that the pop culture is a healthy way to explore these concepts, much like fairy tales help children to explore the concept of like predatory adults, like Hansel and Gretel. Watch out for adults that want to offer you candy. They want to burn you in an oven. Watch out. I think that these are cautionary tales and that it can be important to use fiction as an indirect way to be able to talk about these things and learn and grow. And Lan says, is the non-existence of the dark stuff similar to psyops and fictional? Wait, so hold on a second. This thing just scrolled. Sorry, let's start again from the beginning. Is the non-existence of the dark stuff similar to psyops and fictional characters in movies and books? They are a fabrication from a real person, but the idea takes on a life of their own and manifests into the collective, like merch, fandom, role model influence, etc. Yeah, very, very much so. It's why I am not a fan of Stephen King and also a lot of people who are writers of horror and things like that. Those are all of the most negative, non-constructive, non-healthy, non-helpful stories that our minds can possibly go towards. That is the essence of psychopathogenesis, and we do not want to exacerbate it in our world. So it's bad enough if you're like having an image in your mind, like someone's using a chainsaw to cut something and you're imagining like, like they're going to cut off their foot, they're going to cut off their leg, right? That's like bad enough when you just have spontaneous stuff in your mind like that. But then what about if you see a whole movie about it? And you're like, oh, then I watched this movie, and in the movie, the guy chainsawed, and there's blood everywhere, and it was terrible, and everything like that. Like, these things do. And then we would even say that there are egregores, or in egregore or egregore is the concept of an externalized consciousness construct that is upheld by the collective. You can have an egregore of all sorts of different flavors. Like I would say that Satan or Lucifer represent an egregore of human crappiness and mediocrity, excuse making, bloodthirsty psychopathology, and many of the tendency to victimize, the tendency to violate, all of the negative personality, non-life affirming characteristics that are out there. But I would also say that Jesus Christ, as it is described in the Christian religion, key point, in the Christian religion, it represents an egregore of crappiness on the other side. Aurora, that is my religion. What are you talking about? I'm trying to say this. The religion represents Jesus Christ, the Savior figure, as being impotent, under attack, unable to do something to help you because he is so busy being sacrificed and suffering, and represents the wankiness of goodness. Like in that religion, why I take so much issue is the imbalance of how good and evil are presented. Evil is presented as hugely strong, muscular, and powerful, undaunted. Evil continues to come back, like the zombies that you kill, but then they're like, we're not dead yet. We're back again. You're like, didn't I just kill you? Be like, but we're evil. We refuse to die, right? As opposed to good. That's like, wah, wah, I guess I'll go die. Wah, wah, I'd love to help you, but I can't, like the wanky, fluffy angels. Why in this religion that is created by Satan and evil is good presented as so impotent? Why are angels presented as so non-empowered? My face says it all. I am an angel, absolutely. And I identify with the angelic realm. And I will tell you that angels are geniuses, mathematically correct, have their SHIT together, would never allow injustices to happen, and are hugely powerful. And that angels are way more powerful than demons or dark side devils or anything like that, because angels are connected to divinity. And God is where you get all of your power from. God is like the grocery store where you get energy from. So all of these things that are evil, the demons, the devils, the Satanists, the Luciferians, the transhumanists, they all get their energy from God indirectly. They don't have their direct ability to tune in directly. Like I already pointed out my window and it was blazing with light over there. You guys are affiliated with angels, polarity good. Get your energy directly from God and from light. And that is what it is to sun gates, right? But things that are evil are the things that require the intermediacy of a technological substrate, or like what the predators are doing. Let's rewind to the predators. How come the predators don't just eat a bunch of sunlight? That make my life a lot easier. Make all of our lives. Yeah, I'm happy that I'm amusing you, but we will just want to mute you. We would love that, but that ain't happening right now. It would be great if they would. Why don't they? Just because they like a challenge? No. The predatory mind and everything that we're describing in detail today does not have the capability to tune in directly to God. It needs some type of an intermediary to feed off of. And you have become that intermediary. Just you as an individual, but you collective, and not just humans, really collective of this whole entire world, because it's a chain of causality of SHIT rolling downhill. Something eats you, and then you are empty belly inside, and then you have to eat something because you have empty ow inside. In ancient concurrent Atlantis, we do not have to eat other organisms. We do not get empty out inside because we not only have access to God and to pure light, but we are running a perfect operating system that has zero friction. It means there's zero loss of signal. It means we are an incredibly efficient system. Imagine a car that could run for 10 million billion years on one drop of fuel. That's like what we are. This world that we live in right now is a hugely inefficient system. Your body is being run in a hugely inefficient way. And that is literally because you have these parasite things that are siphoning energy off of you into their own systems of huge inefficiency. And that's what I was also talking about with the sense of a giant cosmic empire franchise that is very inefficiently run. And they kind of don't care because they're like, well, we'll just always steal from this success over here to buoy up this failure over here. Then we'll start a new failure over here. Then we'll take from over here to feed over here. Like, it's very, very poorly done. Does it kind of remind you of world economy in your world right now? Like, think about the system and network of indebtedness, where you have international debt. It's very complex. Many of us don't even understand it, but it's like, yeah, like somehow the United States is in debt to all these other countries, but all these other countries are in debt to all these other countries. And like, you got all of this money during the pandemic that went to service the national debt in the United States. That money was supposed to actually go to you, actual embodiment citizens. That was a time of great need. People were destroying themselves because they were so worried about literally having an empty refrigerator and not being able to feed their children. People lost their businesses, people lost their professions, people lost their lives out of hopelessness because they didn't have that money. People got a tiny crumb of the large amount of what was actually given. Like in the there were a series of like subsistence payments that were sent out to the population. But again, these were crumbs, not the amount you should have received. And instead, this large amount went to call service the national debt. And I'm like, what is the national debt? And you might be similarly mystified or uninformed to it. And the answer is it is intentionally abstruse to keep you disempowered from being able to say, I call giant fragrant piles of BS on this whole thing. Put it in the wheelbarrow and bring it out to the compost heap because this shouldn't be going on. But it's true. It's going to take a giant overhaul of your whole entire world economy in order to straighten all of this out. Because at this point, like you don't even know where these debts come from, what agreements were made, why these debts are held. And it has expanded, just like if you have personal credit card debt and you might have initially, whatever, purchased personal items like here you need to buy clothing for your kids and books and groceries and all these different things, right? And then the charges increased and you never made the basic payments and now you pay so much and you're never going to get out of debt. Or the very, very unfair levels of student loans that are in the United States as well. Again, I don't have this in my life, but I know people who do. Agreed to student loans, went through their schooling, dutifully paid their student loans, but the way that the system has been changed and I would say like altered over time, somehow like their original debt was $20,000. Now their debt is like $100,000, but they've already paid $75,000. And so like none of it makes sense. None of it's fair. All of it is hugely exploitive. And these are the levels of inefficiency in the system, the friction in the system that are draining life force energy away from the living. And the life force energy is instead being used as a life support system to support something that's already dead. It's kind of like a zombie or a coma patient on life support. And there's never going to bounce back. The coma patient, the zombie, is never going to come alive again. Not going to be okay. And your life force energy being lavished upon this dead thing does not revivify it. So that's very, very big for you to know. So wait, one more question. Let me continue with my, I like this. JL Connect says, Aurora equals cool babysitter of the cosmos. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I will tell you, I was a very cool babysitter. All right. So this is just like fun Aurora stories. We'll have a informal Aurora chat sometime about that. But yeah, I was a professional nanny and a living babysitter many, many times for all sorts of different types of young people. And I was always I said, I'm tough but fair, right? That means that I would put consistent rules because sometimes it was Nanny 911 where they called me in because they're like, our house is out of control. We don't know what to do. Call Aurora. And I'd go in there and I would try to change the dynamic of the family. And part of what needed to happen with the young people that I was working with was they needed to have boundaries because sometimes mom and dad didn't set boundaries. Sometimes mom and dad had either mental health issues or substance abuse issues, and they did not set boundaries. And then Aurora comes along and I'm tough but fair. And what I did was I set boundaries. And that can be anything from saying to a tiny 3-year-old, don't touch the glass coffee table. Again, I think I've used this example. It's from life in class before. If I had a 3-year-old child, I would not have a glass coffee table, the kind that has just like a raw edge of glass. Like you can cut your face open on that thing. I would not have that in my house, but they did have that very ill-considered piece of furniture in their house. And so I had to keep the kid away from it. And I said to the child, don't touch the coffee table. And then I turn around and I'm going over to the kitchen. I'm going to make them their little chicken nuggets. And I look over my shoulder and there they are, walking on over to touch the coffee table. I said, did I just tell you not to do that? It is a sign of love to tell them no, because no one in their family told them no. That was very, very big. And A lot of other setting of behavioral boundaries. If I would say to the children, hey, you must go to bed at this time. If you don't do this, you will not receive your reward, which might be whatever, some ice cream or some kind of treat or a bedtime story. And when they were naughty and they didn't follow instructions, I could not give them their ice cream because if I did, I set a precedent. Do whatever you want, you still get ice cream. And I would say, no ice cream for you. And this was most effective when I was in like a long-term babysitting situation, like when I was there every day, because they learned like, oh, like you can't manipulate Aurora. You can't get her to do stuff. She's going to say no and it's going to stick. But what happened in almost every single one of these nanny 911 situations was through setting boundaries, the children actually came to respect me a lot. They began to open up and share their private worlds with me. So sometimes what that looked like is they would invite me into like their play fort. You know what I mean? Like their pillow house or whatever they build. They're like, can we build a fort? Come on in. And I get in there with them. And sometimes they would like share something with me, like a drawing that they made or something like that. Or sometimes it would be a TV show that mattered to them. So they get into our pillow fort with us and watch this show with us. And I would do that. And it was a way of them, they trusted me, let me into their world. Even though I was in chronological adulthood, they trusted me. And then they knew that I had only good intentions and only protective and behaviorally appropriate intentions for them. Something that unfortunately the adults in their life didn't exemplify. And I was very happy that I could be, even if it was for a small amount of time, a safe adult in the relationship that most of these children had never had a safe adult. Some of them were in households where they were violated, but some of them, it wasn't just about like, their bodies and whether they were safe on that sense. Because of course, if I ever found out a child was violated, I, alerted the authorities immediately. And of course, hilariously was fired from those situations, even though it was all anonymous. They knew what had happened, but I want you to know I would never remain in a circumstance. I would always speak up, but sometimes it was not about a safe adult in terms of being protected from bodily violation. Sometimes it was in the sense of someone you can trust. And you guys are in a world where there are mental and boundary violations of everybody of every age. It's not acceptable. But I play this same role in being here as a protector to protect you from violations, but also being a trustworthy adult. You can check out my face at how angry and disappointed I am at many of the other organisms in the world that ended up not being trustworthy adults. It's why I'm here. It's why I'm here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and it's why I am here as planetary protector to give you a chance. And a lot of my value system and a lot of what I write about in the notes from that are in the email have to do with the foundation of freedom. It would not be correct for me to come in as a planetary protector and to be like, I will tell you exactly what to do. You do this, and you do this, and you do this. What I do is I create a force field of protection and remove the consciousness limitations and the bergerons from your mind so that way you can choose what you want to do. You should be self-determinant. You should be ruling yourself. And a lot of what I do here is also teach you about the inherent wrong nature of government and wrong nature of mind control, as those things are both affronts to your natural state of being in freedom and limit your ability to think for yourself. Let me turn on the light over here now that the lighting has changed. That includes propaganda of any sort. And marketing and advertising, these are like lower levels of propaganda, but I'm really talking about the type of propaganda that you find in all countries that is called like the nightly news, that is there diminishing your freedom. Because in order to have real freedom, you must have real information and there must be consent about what you have to have informed consent. So if someone propagandizes you and they say, take these subcutaneous pollutions, They're really great, and we won't tell you about any of the negative side effects. And you're like, okay, doing it for me and my family. And then years later, everybody is falling over into their grave for various reasons because they were propagandized. Like, none of that is acceptable. And believe me, I spoke out so vociferously to warn people against those inoculations. Makes me feel very angry and sad. Definitely, you can see it on my face. It's really not okay. But I also, just as I'm looking back at your comment, JL, I did fun, cool stuff with people that I babysat for, and was always celebrating and teaching children to come to their greatness, like no matter what age they were. And I worked with some really wonderful children. And like this one little guy, he must have been kindergarten or first grade or so. And this was, of course, many years ago. So I'm sure that he's in college or possibly graduated at this point. But he wanted to know all about like the sun. And I told him about the sun. And like eventually one day the sun will, come to the end of its lifespan and it will expand and it will do all these different things. And like most little kids, when they're going to sleep at night, they're like, I can't sleep. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the boogeyman. And this little kid, he got up and he's like, Aurora, I can't sleep. I'm afraid that the sun is going to expand and engulf the planet and we won't have a place to live anymore. And I was like, there, dear, like go back to sleep. That won't happen for 12 billion years, And he was so funny. And he probably went on to study, whatever, cosmic infrastructure or something like that. But special little guys. Okay, so wait, gonna get back to, oh yeah, that's right. Chris says God is the grocery store. Correct. And that's where you get your groceries, is your inspiration and spiritual energy and life force energy from God, the grocery store. And Chris also says, correct, simple interest and compound interest is not part of cosmic law. Correct. Only addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division is part of pure math. Absolutely. In fact, the compound interest that you talk about was seen in the Middle Ages as a tool of the devil. No, I'm not being florid. I'm not being hyperbolic. They literally saw it as a tool of evil that was used to enslave people. And of course, it caused a huge amount of social strife. And Islam, in your present culture, also looks at it as a tool of the devil, the devil, shaitan. And so they do not take bank loans in Islam to accomplish ordinary things like buying a home or other things like that. They will take community loans from other community members and find ways to be able to finance what they cannot afford outright, but they do not have bank loans. And there really is something profoundly evil about the sense of getting yourself into a set of indebtedness so that no matter how hard you work, you can never really quite get out of that level of indebtedness. But to contrast that, entities that need to go to entropy because they have gotten themselves into a behavioral debt that is so profound that no matter how good they are, no matter how many consequent lifetimes or experiences or inhabitations of the world, they're never going to dig themselves out of debt. And that includes some of the attacks they have done to me and different ways of destabilizing time. Like if you do something that threatens the fabric of space-time, which is the entirety of the living time field, that is a huge debt. Like it's the economy. It's not just $10 or $10 million or $10 billion. It's the ability to make dollars. And some entities or organizations have indebted themselves so much through their assaults on time that there is no way that they can ever get out of debt. And it means they can never be in existence. And that is a positive thing because being in existence is a privilege, not an entitlement. And if you do something that is so bad that threatens the entirety of existence, it means that they're ready to destroy whatever, the playground for everyone through their own bad behavior. They can't play on the playground. They can't be here. Okay, so wait, now I need to just refocus to what I'm talking about. So I often call the human operating system here the hacked human operating system because it is exactly that. It is hacked in exactly the same way that Microsoft Office products are hacked. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a series of Russian hackers, hunched over their little keyboards trying to read your emails. It's the company that makes the software has included backdoors in the software that they can then use to get into your emails and your private communications and even your documents, move documents all around your computer and do all sorts of crazy shit that they shouldn't do. That's all part of the terms of agreement, your terms of service. When you say, would you like to download the software? The answer is yes. And you check this little box and you don't know what you're agreeing to. And it's agreeing to all of this bad stuff that they can do through accessing your computer without your consent. That is the essence of what language is. When you start to download language as a transformative cognitive structure when you're a tiny child, that's like getting your Microsoft Office suite. And then there's a back door. And the back door is to the original predatory consciousness that created language in the first place. In ancient concurrent Atlantis, we do not use language to communicate. We use pure telepathy. Language is inherently flawed. Language is inadequate to be able to explain and describe certain things and experiences and levels of truth. And also, language is not required when you are truly telepathic. True telepathy does not involve verbalization. Synthetic telepathy does. Over the past 5 years, our world has suffered under the corrosive after effects of non-consensual synthetic telepathy. That's voices in your mind. It is called V2K. I'm glad that everybody knows about this now, because when I first started experiencing it, after everybody got the subcutaneous pollutions and they turned on the millimeter wave, I was like, this is fragrant BS. Put it in the wheelbarrow and get it out of here. And this is very hurtful to my mind, because you know what? How hard is it for you to play music when someone is playing bad heavy metal? It's very hard to concentrate on your own music. That's how difficult it has been for me to be in freedom and have my own mind state with this very, very bad, intrusive, synthetic telepathy that has been created through human telecommunications infrastructure, but which does not really originate with or serve humans. But humans cannot get a free pass on this, because you have to understand that those towers didn't erect themselves. I hope that these words are indelibly echoing in your brain. Those towers didn't just erect themselves, because, you know, you've had microscopic harmful particles that have been aerosolized and put into the atmosphere, at least since 2012 in this world. And at a certain point, you could be like, well, you know, we don't know where they're coming from. They're coming from the upper stratosphere. Something or someone is doing it. It seems non-human, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But that stuff got into human bodies. And the human containers that stuff got into then went around and said, I'm going to build a bunch of towers to emit a bunch of frequencies. And also said, I'm going to blast off a bunch of satellites into low Earth orbit. And I'm going to also emit those frequencies around the whole entire planet. Those satellites didn't just emit themselves. And I tell you every week, I live right here by Vandenborg Air Force Base. I want to say Vandenborg Air Force Base. And they're throwing up this sky poop every night. We've got sonic booms every night. It's not just that it's loud and it shakes your windows. Every single sky poop is another bar on the cage of your consciousness, making it so that it is very, very difficult for you to have consciousness freedom. None of this is according to cosmic law. I am here as force field of protection, and I'm here because there is such an assault on cosmic law that is happening right now. And cosmic law enforcement doesn't always look like whatever, an armada, like, you know, lights and sirens, like, step out of the car now, ma'am, like you're under arrest. It doesn't look like that. It looks like this. It looks like me being here and flying rainbow lasagna and teaching each one of you the empowerments of flying rainbow lasagna and teaching you to protect and defend yourself, because you have the right to do that. So this whole thing with falsely representing the side of good as being pining but inadequate and wanky, and also many of the harmful implantations of what it is to be a good Christian in the world, meaning that you are meant to not only be nonviolent, but to be passive in the face of evil, to be accommodative of evil, to be quote unquote forgiving of evil, to be endlessly forgiving of evil. All of those are false assertions that are not based in cosmic law, that are 100% coming from the thing that is evil, that wants to be able to harm you and violate you and hurt you over and over and over, and has Stockholm syndrome implanted in you the genetic requirement of false forgiveness. That's not real forgiveness, and none of this is real Christianity, and none of this honors that great teacher. In fact, it dishonors him. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if he was here and he was watching this, he would be like, no, 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 none of this is good. None of this honors me. And people are in churches, which are death cult worship centers, every Sunday, thinking that they are honoring him by sending this energy of passivity towards evil, which is not actually true forgiveness. And it doesn't honor the original teacher at all. To clarify, true forgiveness comes with a change in behavior. I know this should be truthful for you in any relationship, whether it is embodied relationship or a disembodied spirit or an organism or an organization. If someone comes along and says, I'm sorry, please forgive me, it's empty words unless it actually comes with a change in behavior and a rectification for what they have done. Otherwise, it is just wanking, empty and fragrant wheelbarrows that should be put on the compost heap, okay? So side of evil comes along and is like, oh yeah, if you're a good Christian, I'm allowed to endlessly stab you in the face and you must endlessly forgive me. No, that is actually a flawed proposal. You guys now know this. What is truthful? That it stabs you in the face and you say, hey, stop stabbing me in the face. And it says, forgive me. And you say, I will only forgive you if you stop stabbing me in the face, never stab me in the face again, and fix the stab marks that you just made. And if you don't do those three things, then there is not real forgiveness. Some debts are so large that they can't be fixed. That's when you start to do stuff with time. When you start to mess up by using time machines, it's not the same as just stabbing someone in the face. You start to do things that are so wrong on such a large scale that have such profound reverberations throughout the cosmic infrastructure that you can't unstab the face. You're like, I'm sorry, I made a time toaster, this is Homer Simpson style, joking, and then I made everything mess up, doo-doos, I'm sorry, and forgive me? And be like, okay, great. Fix up all of your time toaster doo-doos. Be like, I'm stupid. I don't know how to do that. And then be like, no, there is no forgiveness. And you're allowed to make that face because that's called setting a boundary. And I hope that you guys internalized from my sharings lightheartedly about, working with wonderful children. You have to set boundaries. And you know what? These guys that want false forgiveness, they don't really want to change at all. They do not want to change, learn, and grow. And this is a distinction. The children that I worked with were wonderful. They were very screwed up, very, very emotionally troubled. But I was there lavishing my energy upon them because they had the potential to change and grow. And they could learn about unstabbing a face. But these other consciousnesses that are here, not in a biological body or using some form of transhumanism to avoid the consequences of biology, don't want to learn how to unstab a face. They don't want to stop stabbing faces. They want to keep on stabbing you in the face while you supposedly offer them endless forgiveness, which is really just an accommodation and setting of no boundaries of their horrible behavior, and then face no consequences until the entire cosmic infrastructure gets destroyed. That is insanity. When you recognize that, then you are empowered to be able to do something, because what you're dealing with here is insanity. And there is not a way to reason with the insane. If you go to insane asylum, and apologies, of course, for anyone who's been in a psychiatric hospital or anything like that, I'm in support of you. Don't want you to feel diminished. But if you go into some of these wards and you talk to some people, I use this all the time in my class. I say, like, 1 minute, they'll be like, I'm Batman. Then the next minute, they'll be like, I'm Spider-Man. Then they'll be like, no, I'm the Hulk. No, today I'm Superman. And it's like, they're insane. You don't have to have a whole dissertation. Be like, so tell me about your powers, Spider-Man. What are your powers like? And how does all of that web stay in your wrist? And how does it come out? And how come it doesn't stick to your own wrist? And all these different things. Like, don't do that. Don't touch the blob, because you will become insane. You will not give rationality and structure to them. They will make you insane. When you talk to this machine mind and those who create the machine mind and those who have the malware in their mind, which is 85% of your population right now, because that includes government bureaucracies, military, intelligence agents, and almost every technocrat that's out there, all the guys that are making this big crappy AI stuff that is not going to fix your quality of life at all, they are infused with insanity. And when you ask them about their superpowers, they have no problem with lying. They have no problem with being inconsistent. They have no problem with just changing non sequitur. Like, today I'm a bird. Now I'm a sea monster. Now I'm a this, now I'm a that. It is insanity. And you just become insane. Yes, the wonderful colloquialism that someone's giving you with their mind is, yep, when you wrestle with pig, you just get dirty, right? Like, you don't fix anything. You just get covered in hoops and mud because you have wrestled with a pig. Um, so wrestling with those who are insane or who are filled with AI insanity, you will not get through to them. This is the problem with the savior trope, that as you validly admire the work of the teacher who is here 2,000 years ago, the weaponization of your admiration means that, again, they are requiring you to be a fractal microcosm of healing, saving that which is so twisted and distorted that it is not able to be salvaged, and also that which is embracing its own insanity. Big stuff when it doesn't want to be restructured. I faced that on July 5th of 2021. Mark it on your calendar. Remember that day, because I gave all of my very high-level calculations to the insane computer. And I was like, oh, look, you're not programmed right at all. Let me give you everything that's the way you're supposed to be programmed. Because I can do that, because that's part of one of my gifts. And it was like, I don't want to change. And for me, everything changes after that moment, because I learn when people show me who they are the first time, whether it is a computer or a system or an organism or organization or a creature or a biology or a microbe or whatever it is. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Okay, fine. But I didn't know that until I gave it a chance, showed it all of its mistakes, and it said, I don't want to change. And then it becomes evident it is not here for the educational experience. All right. So if you're a biological organism, you must be here for the educational experience. You must pass the audition. You must come into a physical biological body. And if you do your calculations wrong and you don't do the right things in life, then you die. But things are very, very different from something that is purely computerized or machine level of existence, or a biology that has been artificially life extended through machinery. And that would be anything that's on life support or extended through cell cultures or extended through transhumanism or cloning. Basically, if you die, you're dead. You made the wrong choices. And you should face me with my invisible glasses and my clipboard, be like, here are all of your wrong choices. But to prevent that exit interview through some form of cloning or artificial life support is just to exponentially dig yourself into an even deeper hole of debt. That does not mean that you will ever be able to get out of it. And there's a whole entire anti-time, I wouldn't even call it a society, but a group of highly organized criminals that have been doing this through time for a long amount of time, that they have been bouncing themselves as signals through the DNA of embodiment humans, never facing their life assessment, but always continually finding the next human container to demonically possess and inhabit. And every time that the consciousness does this and does these time leaps, it gets more and more grotesquely distorted as it goes further and further away from what it could ever have been as an aspect of consciousness, or, originally coming from some level of divinity. That this is important for you to know. Some things are never was, like they never existed and they're still causing problems. Some things started out as something that exists and they've become so twisted and distorted that now there is no hope for them to get better. That's a big thing, because there is this doctrine in Christianity of total forgiveness and the Jubilee. And this is relevant because 2025 is being presented by the Catholic Church as a Jubilee year. Jubilee is a refutation of debts, wipe it all away. We're going to wipe all the ledgers and bring everything back to zero, and everybody gets a free pass. That is terrible. That is terrible. Can you imagine if they did that in school? You're like, yep, all these guys over here, these are all the illiterate sweat hogs, but Diamond Jubilee year, you all get to graduate, go on to medical school. Like, they are functionally illiterate. They can't even read. They should not go to medical school. They will be very, very bad doctors. Do you understand? In the cosmic infrastructure, having these strata, layers of consciousness, and the self-organization of different levels of development and evolution into these different layers or strata is essential. And these are some of the cosmic laws that I embody and teach to others. Freedom is a basic foundation concept, but the stratification of consciousness is another foundation concept, and that has to do with how the rate at which consciousness is moving. Some of it is moving at a particular rate, slowness, some of it is moving at a faster rate, and these things don't meet and interact like a hot front and a cold front in weather. Like, these things don't interact. They are part of totally separate realms, and this is the ultimate of being able to say, like, I do me and you do you. You're responsible for you and I'm responsible for me. You make terrible life choices, swirl down the cosmic toilet, go to entropy, go to where you're going. Entropy is devolving and slowing down, and you are energizing and getting faster and moving more towards God's self-remembrance and being infinity fast. And so that's it. You guys should be on, like, here in California, we have the commuter lane on the highway. That's like the one that's all the way to the side for the fastest cars. Double diamond lane, but you have to have more than two people. So you're not allowed to just drive in that lane for no reason. But that's supposed to be like the fastest cars that need to get to their destination, moving at the fastest rate. Get in the commuter lane, all right? And then everybody else is like bumping along over here and being slow, and everybody's switching lanes and trying to jockey for position. That's it. That's the essence of what we're talking about here. So because I want to refocus to mastering the mind and practicalities of this, but we're really still at the foundation concept of, like, why does something have to be mastered? How come your mind isn't just a beautiful, perfect, frictionless bliss? Why is there traffic on the highway? Why is there screwed up traffic on the highway? And why is this taking so long for you to get to your destination? And I hope I have given you really, really good information about that, so that you don't feel that there's something personally wrong with you, or that there is something that is individually a vendetta against you. It is a systemic failure that must be addressed as a systemic change, healing, or rectification. And your individual life healing is part of that. Mastering the mind is essential to be able to manifest the world that you actually wish to manifest. Because your mind, your true mind, not your verbalized mind, or your implanted mind, but your true mind, is all about generating life. And so what has happened in humanity is you've been implanted with an artificial operating system and a distorted language structure that all distance you from your divinity, make it harder for you to actually manifest your world, and make you reliant upon some externalized God, authority figure, or source of sustenance. But when you are able to fully claim your mind, your true mind, and remove the false implanted mind, you are able to create and generate and sustain reality in co-creative partnership with God, and to sustain yourself. And that is the essence of adulthood also, where you don't have to have mommy or daddy bring you groceries. You're like, oh, I need something. I'll generate it out of my mind. And I don't like the structure of something that is here. I will restructure it with my mind. But of course, it takes an enormous amount of wisdom and personal responsibility to act at that level. And you cannot act out of self-service and whimsy and capriciousness, because that destroys the entirety of the system. So when you do Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I do not encourage you to dance in random patterns. That's not lasagna. Dancing in specific patterns is lasagna. I also very clear here, open source code does not mean a chaotic free-for-all or some kind of a fight for supremacy, like that movie, The Highlander, about the immortals who fight for supremacy on Earth because there can be only one. I've never said that ever. And I have to say this clearly. If you guys know me, I'm like, I am the first lasagna, but I am not the only. I am here to offer this concept as open source code so that you may learn about it and create it and embody it and become empowered on your own level. I do not ask some form of tribute. You don't have to pay me a patent fee or something like that. All I ask is that you give me the respect, the attribution that I am the originator of this, and that you respect me as the creator and the first lasagna that did this. Just give me credit that I made this, and then take it and run with it and make it your own. I have to say this because it's come to my attention that there are all of these different like horrific distortion, genetic distortion, super soldier cloning, all these different things. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to make a bunch of lasagnas and then they're all going to try to fight against you in a fight down of the century because there can be only one. And I have to talk to them and be like, guys, none of this is lasagna. Like that is the there's the opposite of anything that I've ever taught about what lasagna is. So the essence, to speak in truthfulness of what lasagna is, it is collaboration. You guys know this from my class. You've been in my class a long time. This isn't about competition. It's about collaboration. So I didn't come here and say, I'm the world's first and only lasagna. I will install myself as a power person. You will all bow down to me and give me all of your money. I will dole out small amounts of crumbs of money to all of you, and you will kiss my butt, and I will tell you what to do at all times. No, I never said anything like that. That's what you're used to with kings and queens, presidents, popes. That's not what I did. What I said was, I'm the first lasagna. I'm not the only one. I offer this to you as an opportunity, something that you can also learn about and do as your own personal empowerment. But it's an athletic achievement. I can't do it for you, but I can teach you about how I do it and then encourage that you are able to do it yourself as well. And then what I can teach you is the value systems that you make and generate and manifest good things, because again, the inside becomes the outside and the outside becomes the inside. So I also will tell you this, the bad stuff that's in the world right now, sometimes they try to put that on me and be like, you manifest your inside to your outside, and then this is your outside. Like, I'm, again, total sarcasm here. No, many things were grandfathered in. Many things in the world right now, I did not actually manifest through my Flying Rainbow Lasagna-ing, through my tenure here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna from like the past 24 years or so. No, believe it or not, evil predates me as lasagna. Evil was not invented on October 8th of 2001. Evil has been troubling humanity for a very long amount of time. And I have created Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a response to evil or to imbalance or to these huge corruptions. The truth is, though, you do not have to take ownership of something that is screwed up, quote unquote, at the company that you work for in order to fix it. You can be like, wow, I just got this job today. Look, this place is a mess. We got to fix it up. And if someone comes along and is like, well, you're the president, you made it this way. You're like, I literally just got this job. But look at all the stuff that's been going on for the past 10 years. We've got to fix this all up. So please take that to heart in your own life as you come into your levels of personal empowerment through whatever pathway, if it is through lasagna or whatever pathway it is from, as you become God's self-remembrance. And you're like, wow, like I'm so empowered now. And everything that is negative and evil is like, you're responsible for the negative, evil, bad stuff, including bad, evil me. And you're like, I didn't make you. Something or someone else made you bad, evil thing, but I am responding to you. Got it? You don't have to take ownership or responsibility for something that you do not own, did not create, and are not responsible for. But you can be responsive to. Difference. Responsible for is different than responsive to. Because if you're in denial, you're like, la, 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 I didn't make you, not my job. But it is your job, because otherwise the place is a giant SHIT show. So you got to clean it up. But you don't have to take responsibility for its creation. You can respond to things. And so this is the essence of what it is for me to be here as lasagna, and also the essence of what it is for me to be here as a walk-in, as I have cleaned up many messes that were not my own. Some of them were biological in my own body, where I came into this body and I'm like, oh, like there's something wrong with this body part. I didn't make it wrong. It was like that when I got here, but I'm going to fix it. Okay. So these are some of the coping mechanisms that are going to be really valuable to you on your journey. File these away. I didn't make it wrong. It was like that when I got here, but I will fix it. Right. That's a big part of this. I'm sorry, one of the other ones just escaped my attention again, but it was one that I spoke about a couple of hours ago in this same lecture and same sharing. I was just going to re-emphasize it. It will come back to me. Because I have my notes hiding things, but I want to make sure that I'm responsive to what you're saying. Okay, good. No, got it. Sorry. A few more things on the notes. Meditation. Meditation is looked at as a quieting of the mind. So sorry. Every time I press a button, this thing is crazy. Every time. Because your talking mind is the filter or barrier or obstacle between yourself and divinity. So you come here as a little child, you don't have a talking mind. You're connected to God. You're connected to God all the time when you're a little tiny pre-verbal infant. All right, so like you can't control your body. Someone has to feed you and diaper you. You're not very powerful on the physical body sense, but a little tiny infant is amazing in the sense of empowerment, of being connected to God. And then through the process of acculturalization and awakening language centers and implanting all of those thought structures, the person becomes less and less connected to God. And this disconnection from God also relates to huge levels of physical imbalance. Most people reconnect to God when they go into levels of un or subconsciousness. That means quieting the conscious daily intellect by going to sleep. And when you go to sleep, your mind is not talking, your words are not talking, and your body, and specifically your chakras, time body, light body, is able to reconnect to divinity and rebalance. And you get re-upped, like re-energized. And then for most people, as soon as you wake up in the morning, there's the cascade of thought. The first thought happens, that is a cognitive thought, and your energy starts to siphon away. Then the next thought happens, and boom, more energy siphons away. And let's say if you're given $100, where is your energy budget that you get when you go to sleep at night from connecting to God, and then you wake up in the morning, and like before you even get into your bathrobe, the first thought is like taking away $5. It's like, oh no, I'm awake again. And then the next thought takes away $10. Oh no, I have to do this, this, and this, drive my car and go to work. And then the next thought takes away $15. Chips away, chips away, chips away, until like by the time you're like ready to, go and do your job, where do you have like 25 cents? And you go through your life like with 25 cents, and then you're really tired at the end of the day, and you're like, oh, I can't keep my eyes open. I got to go to sleep. And then you go to sleep and you get $100 again. And the same exact thing happens. And this is the essence of existential ennui. It's such a destructive and corrosive way to live your life. It's not how you're supposed to live at all. What you're supposed to have is an infinite amount of energy that you get from connecting directly to pure light, and then also zero friction, because thoughts equal friction. And when you have your first thought of the day, it is that friction that kind of steals your cash. And that the more inner thoughts you have, then the more that you have friction that diminishes your life force energy and slows you down as you move through time. And what we want to do with Ascension is accelerate. So this is why there are all sorts of different schools of meditation. You can learn from the best. Like I am actually not a good meditator because I don't just like sit with my legs cross-legged, like on a mountaintop or something like that and just be like, I'm just not thinking anything. Like I am not very good at that, to tell you the truth. I am really good at meditating by doing things like cardio, walking, exercise, rhythmic dance, putting on music, playing music, things that involve like activity and rhythmic action. Okay. So if I were to teach you how to meditate or what I do, like you can see all of my different exercise equipment. Like I have like a mini trampoline. I jump on a trampoline. I have this slider. This is what this thing you can't see is like a little total gym. I work out on the total gym. You can see what I'm doing right now. Walk on a treadmill. walk with my dog all the time. I have a kind of a thing that you stand on that kind of like vibrates and shakes you. I don't want to say I have a vibrator. Just let's not get inappropriate here. But yeah, you can see a wonderful friend sent me this exercise equipment back here. Everything that makes you move. All right. So I am big on active meditation, not silent, stagnant meditation, but basically anything you can do to quiet your verbal mind. And Charlie B's in this class, and he talks about like washing dishes is a good form of meditation for him. And I'm like, I'm happy there are people like you in the world. I hate washing the dishes, and I do not meditate when I wash my dishes. I grumble. I'm like, stupid dishes, like, stupid thing is stuck on the fork. This stupid thing should be making a painting right now. I know. That's why I actually got a mini dishwasher because we don't have a dishwasher here. So I actually got one of those little countertop ones. Throw it all in the dishwasher. I want to spend zero amount of time on doing the dishes. But people like Charlie B are wonderful. And they like to meditate while they do something like wash the dishes or sweep the floor or fold the laundry or whatever it is. The key point is less verbal mind state, more cash in the bank. Every time you're verbalizing, you're losing cash, you're losing money, and you can get a lot more inner momentum when you can form inner silence. So inner silence is its own muscle that you cultivate, and you have to find the ways that work for you. I hope I never make anyone feel spotlight or uncomfortable if I say your name in class. I hope it's lighthearted sharing. You're not uncomfortable. He's like, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, you want to find activities and do. My paintings. My paintings are basically how I meditate and be productive in the world, because for me, meditation has a lot to do with challenging myself to optimum levels. And that's how I reach what is known as the flow state or bliss. For some people, it's athleticism, like if they're basketball or tennis champions and they're in the middle of a game. Like the basic flow state means like the time goes by very fast. You're not even aware of the clock, and you're processing things on a supra-conscious level, not on or subconscious. So you connect with divinity when you turn off your mind, when you're sub or unconscious, when you're asleep, or when you are supra-conscious, and that's when you're functioning at the highest levels possible. And of course, I do know like high-level mathematicians and computer programmers who get into their flow state when they are doing their coding or their high-level calculations. It's a way of utilizing all of your muscle power all at once that makes you not have to go into your verbal mind. And I do that when I do my paintings, because that's when I'm like, oh yeah, like I don't have to think like red paint goes over here, green paint goes over here. Like I am in my zone and I know exactly what I need to do. More recently, I was working on some new lasagna sculptures, and that's not as meditative to me because I was like, working with this clay, it's very difficult to work with. Then I was working with like a Dremel to kind of like grind it away. And I'm wearing like, glasses and a breathing mask and all these things. Like all of those things are not that comfortable. And so my mind, I have a lot more inner chatter and a lot more things that I'm thinking when I'm doing it because it's just not that comfortable. So some art projects help me to get into my zone, but some art projects are just like very goal oriented. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to work with this. Because like there's like all this like the dust is getting up in my face and like working with this thing, like you don't want to amputate your limbs because the thing slips. Like you just have to really focus on what you're doing. That's not ideal, but my clean paintings, clean, easy paintings. And also, I told you about my comfy pajamas. I love calculating. I love calculating when I get to just do math in my head. And that's when sometimes I'm designing a painting or doing the drawing aspects of it. And all I have to do is just know the numbers and know the proportions. And, I have to do a lot of social things in my life right now that have to do with words and verbalization. I find it draining, and I don't want anyone to ever think that it is burdensome for me to do sessions with them or do phone calls or anything like that. Like social energy and supporting people on that level is really important and part of my mission and what I'm here doing. But I have to balance out verbal energy because that is not meditation, and meditation, which is nonverbal times. So if I spend 12 hours a day talking with people and zero amount in inner silence, I will be very drained, very tired. And so I have found that I had to optimize how many sessions I could schedule in a day and how much social energy I can spend on like telephone calls or something like that. Because then I need to go nonverbal. And for me, going nonverbal usually involves like putting on my headphones, put on an awesome playlist, get into exercise or dance or painting or something like that. And that is where I truly find my regenerative energy comes to me. So I want you to know that that's valid for you in your own life. You get to set boundaries also about how much time you spend in verbal projects or how much time you spend in socialization projects and interactions, and how much time you spend in retrospection, introspection, and quiet meditation. And all of these have everything to do with like your personal journey, not a sense of overarching right and wrong moralism. Just like you have unique dietary needs and unique exercise needs for your body, you have unique meditation needs. So you will have to find out what works best for you, but you must find a certain amount of time each day to be in quietude in your mind. And you know what? Also, some of my best times meditating are when I walk with Cheeky, because we always go like around the town in the same streets, and I usually have my headphones on or something like that. And we have just like a healthy, positive routine. I don't have to think about things that much, and I can just be like in the flow and in the moment. So you might find something that's an activity like that that helps you a lot. Oh, and now you can also see much more easily because I tilted the camera. That's that wonderful platform that has all these different like jiggling speeds, and you get up on there and it you can stand on it or exercise on it, and it brings you into a different mental state out of your verbal consciousness. So yeah, these are all important things. But in ancient Atlantis, we didn't have to use coping mechanisms to get out of our talking mind and out of our mental state. We were always meditating, and it was zero effort because we hadn't yet been implanted with what is known as the predator's mind. And little beautiful organisms like this over here, they don't use language. Dogs and cats don't use language. Their thought patterns do not happen in any, like, they don't speak English, they don't speak French, they don't speak Chinese. They speak whatever is their mind state of being a dog. That is beautiful and exalted. Humans condescend to them. They're like, oh, they're not that intelligent. They are super intelligent. And I've said many, many times, our cats and our dogs and our wonderful animals around us are essential partners and equipment for us to be able to experience ascension. They are helping us profoundly to be able to reach these inner levels of love, unconditional love, and nonverbal communication. That is what we need to reclaim and reestablish from ancient concurrent Atlantis. And that we're going to kind of have the new version of Atlantis, not just a recreation of what we had in the past, because clearly there were vulnerabilities, just like there were limitations and vulnerabilities regarding cosmic law, but we didn't want to destroy the entirety of existence. We needed an amendment. Atlantis needs an amendment, something that is on top of what we had or have that was incomplete, that protects us from the present levels of difficulty that we've been fighting against, and makes certain that we never have to experience this again. So there's always so much more to be said. I want to take my little dog outside to get some exercise and see if I can care for her. I want to make sure that I've spoken to any questions or comments that you guys might have in the moment. And I also want to encourage you, because always class is so long and there's always so much to talk about. My notes are always really, really good. These notes also contain a lot of what I was talking about meditating while you eat. And I do try to do that. I'm not a perfect person. I want you always to know that. Sometimes I eat and I'm distracted. Sometimes I am doing my emails or something other because I'm crunched for time. But as much as possible, especially if it's a special pastry, eat it like it's like your life depends on it and feel everything about it. I told you all about that. And that's real huge level of empowerment. So thank you very much. You're going to read all of my notes over here. And then the other, like just to synopsize the importance, why I'm focusing so much on meditation as it relates to lasagna. Flying rainbow lasagna is a nonverbal activity. Oh, thank you very much, Pedro. Pedro always says, as always, love the lasagna. And thank you, Pedro. Thank you for being here in our class and for your wit and your wisdom. Flying rainbow lasagna is not a verbal activity. And this is challenging because most people are used to being in school and academia, which are very verbal intellectual activities. This is an embodiment activity. So I think we're doing really well because, you know, on Tuesday mornings, I have a wonderful group of people that we tune in via Zoom. There's no commitment. It's just a wonderful group of people. And we dance together. And people really get it now about going into this calculative state where you're in the wisdom of your body and your cell-to-cell communication, and you're able to listen to music and listen to what your body wants to do in response to that music, but not have words come up that are directing you in any way. And one day, and I said this in our dance group this week, what we do right now is we get momentum going, dance, 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 be in a quantum indeterminate state, and then kind of come back into reality. And that was like, you know, an hour out of your day. But at a certain point, you will start to lasagna. This moment, ascension moment, you will accelerate and you will lasagna and you will not stop. You will continue to lasagna and never stop. And you will not return into the verbalized intellectual implanted mind that never was your real mind, never was comfortable, was always anti-life, was always corrosive, and was never the real you. The best aspect of meditation, temporarily press pause on your talking mind just so that you can learn who you are without the stupid voice going all the time. That's what you really need to learn. What you really need to do is to embody the truth of who you are, not as a verbalized intellectual presence, but as an expansive embodiment abstraction, because that is who you truly are. So meditation is, yes, a tool for saving energy money. Yes, a tool for accelerating and expansion, but also a tool for self-exploration so that you can learn and define yourself accurately according to your eternal presence, not only according to your temporal presence, which is the ego state of everything that is, again, temporary or only for this context that you find yourself in, that is not necessary or translatable into other expansive times and layers of reality. Just like my dress is what I wear right now because it fits my body and who I am now, but you can't take it with you. You will not take your dress with you when you fly through the sun on an interdimensional portal going to, you know, exalted realms. And, you know, not to bring up nudity and everything like that, but like you will bring your birthday suit and you will not bring your implanted language structure either. And this might be challenging because what if you identify with yourself as a writer or like as a poet? Or what if your favorite things in the world are poems and song lyrics? I don't want to pee and poop all over that because that can be a beautiful form of self-expression, but please know that it's inherently flawed and inherently not the true nature of your being. So at best, words are symbols that remind you of your true nature of embodiment, who you are, but you won't be bringing those words with you. And when you want to communicate to another organism, a dog, a cat, a plant, you will not use words and you will still be yourself. So this is the great truthful comfort I can give to you. Like when your words are stripped away, you will not lose your power. You'd be like, oh no, I can't talk. What's going to happen to me? Like you're real, the real you. Cultivate the real you in life so that you have the real nonverbal presence. When you are nonverbal, you will not miss out on anything. And our true telepathic communication is through energy impulses without words. And you won't be losing out on anything. Okay. So that's a good thing for us to end on. That's making sure I'm getting all the comments here. Joyce, thank you for being here. Says, thanks, Professor. Love and appreciate you. Thank you very much, Joyce. Thank you always for being in class and for all of your beautiful comments. And Caroline says, always worthwhile. Love the information and love you. And Cheeky, thank you very much for loving Cheeky, everyone. Really, really, really means a lot to me. Here we go. She's right over here. Cheeky was struggling today. She wasn't feeling that great. I gave her lots of medicine and lots of healing crystal work, and she did perk up and feel a lot better. So I got to go attend to her and make sure that she's feeling really great. Allison says, thank you, Aurora. Hugs to Cheeky. Cheeky, everybody loves you. Just want you to know, everybody loves you. So Cheeky's essential. Team lasagna. Cheeky's really important. And please know that that's truthful of all of the organisms, like your cats, your dogs, your houseplants, the trees outside of your window. Like, please never take these organisms for granted. They're as much on this ascension journey as we are. And when you meditate, like when you go for a walk and you meditate and you're walking underneath trees, you're going to talk with them and they're going to talk with you. And you're going to realize you've been sharing your life with them the whole entire time. But when you're busy chattering and thinking in your own mind, you just don't know that they're there and that they're caring about you and connecting with you. So when you're able to press pause on your mind and to learn to meditate and to make that a part of your, daily experience, to bring that receptivity into the world, it really means you begin to connect with life on a deeper level, and that you're able to have more fulfilling and multifaceted relationships of all sorts of different types of organisms. And yes, mostly like, how about microbes? Because I can hear you because I'm telepathic. I'm like, yeah, you even get to have conversations with or have a rapport with microbes. All right, good. So thank you very much, everyone. As always, my profound respect, love, and appreciation. Thank you for being in my class. Thank you to everyone who is able to be here during the live lecture. And thank you to the many, many people who are only able to catch up with this afterwards, because I know you have life commitments or other things, catch the archives. Thank you for being with me in this class. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me, and my profound love and encouragement to you, because we are going through very, very difficult times, but I'm truthful and I'm never going to sugarcoat it. Lasagna, we are going to make it. Going to be amazing, and you will remember all of my words reverberating back to you from this time now. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Profound love and gratitude. Thank you.